Thank you to the patrons for supporting the channel. Welcome back. Today we're doing part 1 of a new series I'm going to be doing, basically going in-depth and analyzing every single aspect of the Five Nights at Freddy's games one at a time. From the gameplay to the fan base to the theories, everything surrounding the game basically I'm going in-depth on, including, for this episode, I have an interview with the first person to ever make a Five Nights at Freddy's Let's Play. So look forward to that. Now it's going to be a bit long-winded, so if you only are interested in one part of it or you want to pause and go back, the timestamps to all the different sections are in the description and they should be visible on the progress bar. Without further ado, let's get into it. I've talked at length before about exactly how Five Nights at Freddy's came about. Scott Cawthon released a game called Chipper & Sons Lumber Company, which was trashed basically for looking too creepy and reminding people of Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. And so with that bit of inspiration, he had one last hurrah at game development, creating Five Nights at Freddy's. After a very short failed Kickstarter attempt, the game was released on Desura and later greenlit on Steam in August of 2014. The gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, despite being deceptively simple, was so effective that it has impacted the face of indie horror basically forever. Despite being a survival horror game, if you just looked at the gameplay, it's a quick-on-your-feet resource management game, saving power, surviving until 6 a.m. It almost reminds me of an earlier Scott Cawthon game, Sit and Survive, which has a lot of similarities. Because you can't fight back or hide, Five Nights at Freddy's is based on a relatively simple gameplay loop: information, action, and wait. Information is when you gather the due information you need to act on, and there are 3 major places you gather this information from: diegetic visual cues, non-diegetic visual cues, and audio cues. Diegetic visual cues include where the animatronics are in the cameras or where they aren't in the cameras, the camera static, the status of the doors, the lights outside the doors. Non-diegetic visual cues include the power meter and percentage and timer. And the audio cues are the footsteps, the pots and pans, Foxy's banging, and Freddy's laugh. You take in all of this information and then decide what to do in the next stage, action. In this phase, you decide to close the doors, open the doors, or gather more information. Once you act on the information in defense or power saving, you move on to stage 3, wait. In this phase, you wait for the next thing. If they're at your door, you wait for them to leave. If they're not, you wait for them to come to the door. In some cases, you just wait and hope the timer runs out before they can jump scare you. After this brief period of waiting, you move all the way back to stage 1, gathering your information to act on. The gameplay loop is simple but effective. In fact, at certain points at higher level difficulty, it becomes more muscle memory than consciously thinking about each aspect of the gameplay. And while simplistic on the outside, there are a lot of other aspects to the game that keep it interesting. One of them, the main thing you manage in this resource management game, is the power. Almost everything you do causes power to be drained down faster. You're trying to manage power while also surviving until 6 a.m. Another aspect is that all of the animatronics have different AI that you have to account for and behave differently. Bonnie and Chica both move slowly from the stage towards your office on separate sides and appear in your lights on either side. Foxy slowly moves out of his cove until he gets to his final stage where he rushes the door on the left side. Freddy works similarly to Bonnie and Chica in that he moves from place to place, approaching on your right side. Most of the time he moves with an audio cue. However, he is much harder to spot in the cameras and does not appear in the light. His final stage before jump scaring you is in the camera, which informs the technique used in the hardest nights. He's also the jump scare you get if the power runs out and it doesn't turn to 6 a.m. fast enough. There's also Golden Freddy, but I think he fits into a different category, so I'll talk about him later. After you beat all 5 nights of increasing difficulty and then the bonus 6th night, you unlock the custom night, where you get to set the difficulty of each character individually, going all the way up to difficulty 20. Originally, Scott didn't think that 420 mode was even possible, but after a lot of workshopping from the community, a bunch of people have beaten it now.
Yes! Yes! Oh!
The main technique that was created was close Freddy's door, check Foxy, open Freddy's door, check lights, repeat. Since then, other effective strategies have been discovered, but this one is the earliest and reflects the core gameplay loop the most. Check Foxy and the lights for information, close Freddy's door and the other doors if applicable for action, and then a small wait period between each action. If you couldn't tell by how long-winded that was, I wasn't lying when I said it was deceptively simple. There's so many aspects to keep track of, and it was really well thought of. The thought and care that was put behind the simple gameplay loop is what keeps it interesting. But let's move on. Now, we talked about visual cues already, so I'm not going to get into that. But like I said, gameplay-wise, it's a quick-on-your-feet resource management game. So what makes it scary? Well, it's a masterful combination of audio and visuals. We can start with the animatronics. Each one has a unique and recognizable design, which is surprisingly difficult to pull off. As someone who made a pretty shitty game with just recognizable characters, I can tell you, at least at the moment in the indie game landscape, the #1 way to build a community is having characters that you can make fan art of and are very recognizable. But despite what the fan art might have you think, these designs are legitimately creepy. Now, part of this is boosted if you are at all affected by the uncanny valley, or have a fear of any kind of mannequins or animatronics. The character designs embody a lifeless thing having an unnatural amount of life, if that makes sense. It's almost the inverse of what animatronics are trying to be. As kids, we're supposed to think of these lifeless robots as alive, that's their goal. But in the context of this game, we know they're not. They're just robots, and at night shouldn't be doing anything. But instead they wander around getting closer and closer to you. Their unsmiling faces, dead eyes, and exposed endoskeletons remind us that they're not supposed to be alive. But sometimes they pull something like this. They suddenly shoot to life in an uncanny way, eyes unnaturally wide, mouth hanging open. Other aspects of their design reinforce this uncanny valley. Their sunken eye sockets, reflective eyes that remind me of Blade Runner, dirty or destroyed fur, and emotionless expressions that we can't quite get a read on. They're iconic, unsettling, and very well done. Sort of piggybacking off of that, the cameras are designed in such a way that it is nearly impossible to see what's going on. Static obscures your view, and it's hard to see details when the place is so dark. For Freddy, it takes a keen eye to spot him if you don't know where to look. If you want some good examples of how the cameras are set up to make you scared, let's look at these 3 cams. Bonnie in the hall, Freddy in the dining area, and Chica in the dining area. Bonnie and Freddy share the fact that they are absurdly hard to see. You can make them out, but it makes you, the player, lean in and focus, increasing the tension and setting you up for a jump scare. The Chica one, for me, is just the most unsettling. Wide eyes staring across the room at you, mouth agape. Every time you see something in the cameras, you're immersing yourself more into the game, setting yourself up to be scared. Now let's take a look at the claustrophobic office, the main hub. The room is cluttered and dirty. Yellow and black on the doors are a constant reminder of danger, and the old disabled monitors remind you of how low-tech and vulnerable you are. The doors stay open most of the time, letting the unknown darkness stare right at you. Speaking of staring at you, now, I have no scientific or research basis for this, but I get the feeling that the pair of eyes constantly staring at you from the desk, even when you're safe, adds something. Some animal instinct that knows it's being watched. It's a great way to keep the tension high. Now, if you want an amazing, in-depth analysis of Five Nights at Freddy's audio, then I would suggest watching Scruffy's video. It's amazingly well done. But here's my thoughts on it. Let's talk about the ambience. From the menu to gameplay, the ambience of this game is a deep drone. Starting at the menu, you hear a mix of static, which sets up the main aesthetic of the game, and this ghostly, deep ambience. It sounds almost like an unnatural choir, a ghostly voice underlined by a deep, bassy drone. That ghostly voice feeling is something that actually ties into the lore of the game, so the effect is twofold. And when you get into the game, you're met with another ambience track. A deep, churning, almost metallic sound. Again, it ties directly into the game's themes, metallic and ghostly. It's a great way to build an overall eerie tone while pushing the narrative in a very subtle way. Along with the main ambience, there are other background sounds that add to the atmosphere. Foxy singing, carousel music, and the fan spinning, the camera glitching and turning. This stuff helps build on the atmosphere and give little red herrings and bits of tension while you're moving through the gameplay loop. Now let's get into what I call active audio, such as, audio cues, which we talked about a little bit, the jump scare sounds, and other things that act as a component to the gameplay. When Foxy runs to your door, if you close it in time, a loud banging accompanies his arrival. Chica's pots and pans acts as supplements to the kitchen camera and can even be heard outside of the cams, making it a very valuable piece of information. The animatronics make obscenely creepy, breathy noises which again tie into the lore, along with this distorted audio clip that plays during hallucinations. In contrast to the deep drones of the rest of the game, the doors and lights bring comfort in their harshness. You close that door and boom, it makes a loud, metallic, sturdy sound. You doubt your safety a lot in this game, but you never doubt that the door will keep them out. The slam signifies it. and the harsh blinking light, however creepy it may make the animatronics, is a loud and instant reminder that things are working. And all of this makes it all the more terrifying when you hit that button and it lets out a feeble
This whole town, there's something wrong with it.
PlayStation.
I take you, body, in sickness and in health. From this day forward, through good times, bad times, and all the in-between times, I promise to trust you, care for you, and actually listen to you. I vow to continue learning from you for as long as we shall live.
Now, let's talk about the jump scare. A lot of you may know that even though it just sounds like a robotic screaming, which completely fits, if you listen to the whole thing, it almost sounds like a child crying. But neither of these are actually correct, even though they both fit the lore really well. The audio is originally from a 1981 horror movie called Inseminoid, specifically a scene where a woman is giving birth to an alien. Now, it's very unlikely that this is where Scott actually found it, because that audio clip can be found on a sound effects website, but it's just weird that that's the origin. And it's also weird that it weirdly came back around in the story. Alright, let's talk lore. Despite the game series being known for having an absurdly long and convoluted story, the first game was pretty light on lore. It was just the way that this story was told that made it interesting, and along with the main, sort of hidden elements, there were secrets and Easter eggs that made the whole thing have a bunch of replayability, and honestly is what makes it a classic still today. The newspaper at the beginning when you first start a new game gives us the basic premise. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is looking for a security guard to work the night shift, from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Pretty simple. One secret aspect to this is the blurred newspaper text surrounding the job listing. Essentially, it's telling you that this job was a poor choice, and you probably won't make it past night 3. Just a fun fourth wall break. As soon as you get into the game, you're met with a phone call from the now iconic character Phone Guy, who opens up with the classic, "Hello? Hello?" Throughout these phone calls, he not only reveals hints and red herrings for the gameplay, like closing the doors and how the power works, he also reveals a good chunk of the lore, from the animatronics stuffing you into suits to the
Bite of 87.
Was that the bite of 87?
This is probably the biggest mystery of the first game. I want to talk about it more in a later section, but just wow. With such a small piece of passing information, Scott Cawthon inspired a mystery that would persevere until, well, I guess today. The main followable narrative is the Phone Guy's story. His messages tell you that he used to work the same job and that he's somewhat higher rank in the company, but also not a CEO or higher up. It's not exactly clear where he is in the company. Either way, he seems to understand quite a bit about the job of a security guard. At the beginning of night 4, the phone call ends with Phone Guy being attacked and presumably killed by the animatronics.
I always wondered what was in all those empty heads back there. Oh no.
But in the final Night 5 phone call, you aren't met with Phone Guy. Instead, you're met with a garbled robotic voice. When reversed and cleaned up, it is widely believed to be a reading of an excerpt from the book Autobiography of a Yogi. This recording famously inspired the fan game name The Joy of Creation. But like I said, there's more to this game's story than just the phone calls. Secrets and hidden lore reveals that you could play through the entire game and never see. There's the creepy but not necessarily lore important hidden cams like Bonnie's rare backstage camera and rare death screens, the poster in the West Hall corner changing to Freddy ripping his own head off, and the animatronics and Freddy alone on stage staring at the camera, and the backstage animatronics staring at the camera. And here's where we get into the real shit, the stuff that turned this game to the next level. In the East Hall corner camera, the rules poster will change to one of 4 secret newspaper clippings detailing the disappearance of 5 children. Lured into a back room by a mysterious man dressed in one of the Fazbear costumes, the 5 children were never seen again. Meanwhile, the restaurant is facing shutdown after multiple complaints that the animatronics smell terrible and were leaking what appeared to be blood and mucus. It includes some unsettling quotes like, "The characters will live on in the hearts of the kids," and one parent likened them to reanimated corpses. I think you can see what's happening here. Phone Guy's phony story about the animatronics stuffing you into suits because they don't recognize you as an animatronic seems like a complete lie. The general consensus is that after the kids were murdered, they were shoved into the animatronic suits to hide their bodies, where they're left to decompose. The ghosts of the children now haunt the animatronics, and their own way of being stuffed into the suits is likely what inspired them to stuff you into a suit. And there are more secrets that tie into this story. Posters in the East Hall cam will sometimes change to drawings of crying children, a soon-to-be recurring theme in this series. Now, I think you can see why the breathy voice, jump scare sounds, ghostly ambience, and other pieces I mentioned tie in thematically. And then there's Golden Freddy. In the West Hall corner camera, rarely, the poster will change to an image of a golden version of Freddy's face. Golden Freddy will appear sitting in your office, along with glitching faces of animatronics, a little girl's laugh, which happens to be an unedited version of Freddy's laugh, a robotic voice, and the words, "It's me." If you stare at it for too long without opening your camera, it will jump scare you with a deeper version of the jump scare sound, and crash the game. Later, after false rumors that setting the custom night difficulty to 1987 unlocked a secret ending, Scott Cawthon added a game-crashing Golden Freddy jump scare if you tried to play the game on that setting. There's other examples of Easter eggs related to this Golden Freddy "It's me" message too. After you view the newspaper clipping Easter egg, it triggers another change in the East Hall camera where the term "It's me" is plastered on the wall. When Foxy leaves his cove to run after you, sometimes his out of order sign will have the message "It's me" on it, and sometimes, outside of Golden Freddy, the glitchy "It's me" hallucination animatronic faces will appear randomly. Exactly what "It's me" means is still hotly debated, and many believe it applies differently throughout the games. Also, there is no doubt in my mind, and there shouldn't be in yours either, that the reason Five Nights at Freddy's became so successful was because of how much it blew up in the Let's Play scene. The first Let's Play was released before the game even was, and I'm not just talking about Scott Cawthon's gameplay video. The channel Ben the Scoopist got a copy early because he had played some of Scott's previous games, and uploaded his Let's Play on July 26th. Like I said earlier, I have an interview with him coming up at the end, but for now, let's talk about the video that I think we all know blew the game up. Markiplier, as prompted by fellow Let's Player Yamimash and his whole community, made the most famous Five Nights at Freddy's video of all time. Warning, scariest game in years, Five Nights at Freddy's Part 1. I could literally quote this video by heart. Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Let's Play Five Nights at Freddy's, an indie horror game that you guys suggested en masse, and I saw that Yamimash played it and he said it was really good. So I'm very eager to see what is up, and that is a terrifying animatronic bear. Now sitting at almost 87 million views, this video shot the game and in some ways Markiplier into absurd stardom. With the game's popularity and mysterious nature, it opened the Pandora's box of the theory community. From theories that kind of called it all the way back then, to theories that literally don't make any sense, to outright hoaxes. Compared to the other games in this series, the hoaxes are few and far between, but they're definitely the most iconic. If you want a really comprehensive look at all of the Five Nights at Freddy's hoaxes, check out GoMotion's video. The fake Sparky the Dog image, which purported to be an Easter egg with a new animatronic. There was also the custom night rumors. 1987 unlocked a secret ending, which Scott ended up making kind of true, or 666 makes the kitchen camera visible. Now let's get into the meat of it. There were so many theories that are just so wild and are now infamous. Foxy is a good guy theory, which posited that because Foxy doesn't jump at you, instead just peeks in through the door, he's actually just checking up on you, but the night guard just has a heart attack. Somehow I don't think that was Scott's intention. There was also the Freddy is a girl theory.
Laugh_giggle_girl. 1. Girl.
Let's not get into that. And then there was the idea that Chica had Phone Guy's body inside of her because of the teeth you see, although that was debunked relatively quickly because all of them have the endoskeleton teeth. And of course, The game theory video. This is another example of something that boosted the game's popularity and the creator's popularity. Now, I remember actually thinking that this could have been real because, let's be honest, there wasn't a lot going for the game theory-wise, at the time at least. But I think it's becoming increasingly clear that Five Nights at Freddy's being based on a real-life mass murder at a Chuck E. Cheese in 1993 was very incorrect. Then there were some theories that actually sort of made sense at the time and were pretty widely accepted. Freddy having handprints on his head, Phone Guy being Golden Freddy, Phone Guy being the killer, Golden Freddy being the killer, or the player being the killer. And then there was the rabbit hole of the Bite of 87. What was the Bite of 87? Who did it? And weirdly enough, it was even up for debate whether or not it took place in 1987. Some people thought Foxy, with his wide jaw, which some people thought was broken, and sharp teeth did it. Some thought that the handprints on Freddy's face meant a child got close enough to his mouth for Freddy to have done it. Did Golden Freddy do it? Kinda, actually. There was even a theory that I didn't even remember existed until I was looking at some old Five Nights at Freddy's subreddit posts, that because the animatronics don't look like they're from the 90s or the technology is too advanced, that the game actually takes place in the future and it was the Bite of 2087. It seems like it was a pretty big joke at the time, but I don't really see anybody talking about or joking about it anymore. Outside of the YouTube sphere, the Steam community and subreddit were thriving at this time. And Scott Cawthon himself even interacted with people inside of the Steam community and the subreddit. Now, I wasn't really a big Steam community user, so I just want to talk about the subreddit a little bit. I found some gems while looking back. Here's some early cosplay of the characters, a very dated meme, and just some very nice community interaction. All of these posts are before the second game even came out. But now I want to get to the posts on the first day that the Five Nights at Freddy's subreddit was created. Here we have a GIF with the caption, "Nope." To me, this encapsulated the entirety of the vibe around the first game at the time. Literally blasted me back. And the first post on the subreddit. A link to Markiplier's first video. Very fitting. Also, before we move on, I want to bring up the songs, or specifically the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 Living Tombstone song. Cheesy, stupid, and amazing. This song literally supersonic shoots me back to that time, and it's synonymous with the game at this point. Just listen to it again if you haven't in a while. Trust me, it's worth it. Oh, and also the weird creepypasta Bite of 87 fan audio, which I never really understood. Like many, I was introduced to the game through Markiplier's Let's Play video. I had been watching him for a while and he was the reason I started YouTube in the first place. And I had no idea what it was going to do with my life. It started as a Roblox Let's Play video, but it ended up starting my whole subgenre videos I do analyzing things. Five Nights at Freddy's Unmasked eventually turned into the Creepypasta Files, which turned into the Creepy Files, which is basically where we are now. I won't deny though, there was a little less quality control back then.
It is possible Freddy Fazbear is haunted by a female spirit, right?
Now, with these deep dive videos, I want to rank all of the games. And normally I would go into a little bit more detail into why I put each one where, but I mean, this is the first game. Of course it's going to be S tier. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. Alright, the thing you've all been waiting for. The interview with Ben the Scoopist, the person to make a Five Nights at Freddy's Let's Play before anybody else. But before we get into the questions, I want to quickly go over the story that he shared with me before he answered the questions. It's actually kind of a funny story of why I had any success with the game in the first place. I'd done a series of Scott's previous game, The Desolate Hope. During this playthrough, he was commenting on my videos, offering some advice, and just in general, hanging out. So when his next game came out, Five Nights at Freddy's, he gave me a full copy of it, as I believe part promotion and part thank you. Now the game took off pretty quickly after that, with some much larger Let's Players getting a hold of it, Markiplier being the biggest I believe, but they all just had the demo, which was the first 2 nights only. Queue up my little channel with the next couple nights, so from my perspective, everyone came over and watched my stuff. Easily the most exciting time in my humble little channel's history. Pretty crazy. Let's move on to the questions. How did you discover Scott Cawthon's games? I was first introduced to Scott's games through the Steam release of The Desolate Hope, a game which has one of the most over-the-top, high-energy combat screens I've ever experienced. That the game was made by one person is incredible. It was fun, it had
Bro really put on
artwork,
Cocomelon
and
for us,
very unique
SMH.
storytelling with a lot of varied gameplay. He made the first Five Nights at Freddy's after, and the rest is history. Have you stayed up to date on the FNAF games? I've not stayed very up to date because the games are almost the embodiment of pure stress for me. I believe I played up to night 4 on the first game and night 2 on the second. After that, I largely tuned the series out, although I did watch a few videos analyzing the incredibly deep Easter eggs in the first few games. Just looking it up now, I actually had no idea he made a game past FNAF 4. Clearly, I missed a great deal. How's the game affected your channel? I feel like the best way to represent what the game did to my channel is to simply show a lifetime graph of my views. The enormous peak is largely just 2 days when the game kicked off. It gave me a lot of subscribers and definitely made me feel like being a Let's Player is something I could seriously pursue. Clearly, I could never replicate that success, but it was my 5 minutes fame and I really appreciate what it did for me. What are you up to now? I'm currently working hard at becoming a game developer myself. I graduated from a game programming course in the spring and have been working on my portfolio and applying to whatever positions come up. In regards to my channel, I have largely given up on any idea of being successful, but I still come out with stuff occasionally, mostly just some casual streams. I've tried to set and follow a schedule, but it never seems to last very long. As a guy in my 30s, I find it really hard to find the time. I want to give the sincerest thanks to Ben the Scoopist for answering my questions. You know, for somebody who's so important to the Five Nights at Freddy's sort of history, I'm surprised at how little followers he has, so here is his stuff. Please go follow him. On September 14th, 2014, less than 2 months after the first game's release, an image showed up on Scott Cawthon's website, scottgames.com. The grand reopening, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 2015. Welcome back. Today, thanks to the amazing support of the last one of these videos, we're doing a retrospective on Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Let's get started. Now, unlike the first game, which was relatively unknown and made by a relatively unknown developer at the time of release, this game was a hype machine, people dubbing it the scariest game ever.
You guys were practically begging me to play this again, and I'm glad you agree that this is probably one of the scariest games I have ever played.
And so when that first teaser showed up on scottgames.com, all hell broke loose. In total, there were 5 teasers for this game, and let's look at them individually. With the file name FNAF 2, it couldn't be more clear. There was a second game. With the reveal of what I think is the best iteration of Freddy, the community was released into a frenzy. Another thing to note about this is the 2015 release date. That was inaccurate. Here we have the reveal of Toy Bonnie and Withered Bonnie. This began the real theorizing. Why are there new animatronics? Who brought them back? Another thing to note is the names Toy and Withered were not used at this point. From my memory, the new animatronics were called the 2.0 animatronics, Bonnie 2.0, Foxy 2.0. Speaking of Foxy, another character reveal, the Mangle, at this point known as either Foxy 2.0 or Miss Foxy. And so began the Mangle Gender debate. Dear God. Here we have the first hint at gameplay in one of these teasers. And even though the main thing everyone was talking about was the mask, this is also the reveal of the flashlight mechanic. And so began the tradition of, bro, increase the brightness and contrast on the image. And it was also the reveal of one of the most pivotal characters in the entire franchise, the puppet. And then there was the trailer, opening with a chorus of children singing London Bridge and a reveal of Withered Bonnie to the voice of a phone guy who, for all intents and purposes, at that point had been killed in the last game. And for those who know, he was. Every aspect of this trailer was combed through for theories, from the singing actually being reversed message of Michael All to the drawings of walls to Foxy's jump scare at the end being the words freedom. Almost all of these theories were false, except for one concerning the phone guy call, which we'll get into later. Aside from the theories, this is just an excellent, example of how Scott Cawthon uses his 3D modeling experience to create a really good trailer. The lighting, the music, the pacing, everyone was ready for the second installment, even if they would have to wait until next year. But luckily for them, they wouldn't have to wait that long, because on November 11th, 2014, the second game was released, completely ahead of the original 2015 release date. So the gameplay. Where Five Nights at Freddy's 1 was built almost exclusively on using the 2 doors, there was a lot more to keep track of in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and that's even aside from the fact that there is literally twice the characters. First off, there's no doors, nothing to close them out. So instead, you use 2 new options: putting on the Freddy Fazbear mask to fool the animatronic facial scanners, or the flashlight to disorient or reset the animatronics. So let's start with the gameplay loop. In general, you'll be going through a sequence of 4, especially in the later nights. Wind up the music box to keep the puppet at bay, drop the mask to trick any animatronic near you or in your office, check the hallway and the vent lights, and repeat. It's a fairly simple gameplay loop, but I think it's the best in the whole series. Every piece has a purpose, from the light to the mask to the camera, and you need to use them quickly and expertly to actually survive. Now, a lot of people have a problem with this game's gameplay because it's a lot more RNG based, and I understand that. The skill cap and the random chance that's thrown into it makes it a lot less accessible and way harder in later nights. I think this is the reason in the FNAF World trailer classified the second game as Panic. It's harder, it's faster, and it's way more random. But let's talk about the pieces that actually make the gameplay loop work, the characters. For me, there's 2 types. There's vent and hallway characters, and then there's special characters. These characters include Withered Bonnie, Withered Chica, Withered Freddy, and all the toys. These characters move through the cameras, getting closer in either your left or right vent or hallway, and then come into your office, either standing in your office for a moment or just jump scaring you outright. When they appear either right outside your office or in your office, you use the mask to fend them off. If you're not fast enough, then too bad. While they differ slightly in animation, like Toy Bonnie, in general these characters act very similarly, just coming from different paths. These characters include the Marionette, Balloon Boy, Withered Foxy, the Mangle, and Golden Freddy. The Marionette, aka the Puppet, a soon-to-be very important character in the series, hides inside this present box in camera 11. There's a button that you must hold down to keep a music box wound up. If it runs out, the puppet begins its own little chime, and then jump scares you a few seconds later. You can keep track of the box with this timer circle, or by the blinking warning indicator. Withered Foxy is not fooled by the mask. He'll appear in the hallway, and you have to flash the light on him to reset him. Balloon Boy moves through the vent and is fooled by the mask just like the others. However, he doesn't jump scare you. When he gets into your office, he disables your light, making him a great, or I suppose terrible, combo with Withered Foxy. There's no way to get rid of him, so make sure you don't let him in. The Mangle works interestingly because she has many different mechanics. If you see him in the hallway, you use your flashlight like Foxy. If you see her in the vents, use the mask. And finally, there's the screen where he's on the ceiling. Here, it's just up to luck because she can jump scare you at any point. So like Balloon Boy, it's best to just keep him out of the office. And Golden Freddy. Unlike in FNAF 1, Golden Freddy isn't just an Easter egg, although there are plenty of those in this game. In this game, Golden Freddy even has a setting in Custom Night. He doesn't appear until Night 6 or Custom Night, and his gameplay is pretty simple. If you see him either lying in your office or his ghostly head in the hallway, put on your mask right away until he disappears. Despite being a lot more complex than the first game and a lot more RNG based, to me, I think it's the most effective and best one in the whole series. Everything just feels snappy and all of the mechanics have a purpose. The audio in FNAF 2 is probably the most iconic part about it. From the jump scare to the ambience, to the buzzing that plays when an animatronic enters your office, to the horror sting that plays whenever something is in your hallway. Now, much like the first game, there are a lot of audio cues that are important to the actual gameplay, but unlike the first game, there aren't as many red herrings or fake-out audio pieces. Everything in the second game is connected directly to gameplay. For instance, whenever an animatronic is in your hallway or is getting close, that little horror music loop plays. In early game, it's a great way to keep track of where the animatronics are in relation to you, or if they've moved up. However, in later nights, the sound is pretty much going on continuously. Mangle, Balloon Boy, and the Marionette all have sounds tied directly to them. Whenever time is run out, the Marionette plays music letting you know that the music box is over, and you only have a few more seconds before you get jump scared. Mangle's distorted radio sound does act as an interesting uniqueness to the character, but it also gives you an auditory cue as to what character they're in, and when they enter your office. Balloon Boy's classic,
Hello? Hi.
tells you when he's moved closer. And you definitely know when he's in your office. And the other characters, like the first game, have quiet footsteps and rustling sounds in the vents that give you a general idea of where they are, or if they've just moved. And on that buzzing I mentioned earlier, while the giant animatronic standing right in front of you should be enough to get your attention, it also is accompanied by a sort of creepy ambience to drive that point home. Again, the audio is all tied to some gameplay aspect. And we can't forget the jump scare, completely different from the first game, and it sounds a lot more human. Now, unlike the first game's jump scare sound, there's not a lot to note here, that I know of at least, besides the center of the whole freedom theory I discussed earlier. It's effective and serves its purpose, but that's about it. Okay, let's talk about the ambience for a second. Because it doesn't have as many weird red herrings, it feels a lot less dense and a lot less deep also. It sounds less droney and is a little bit quieter. To me, it seems a little more grounded. It sounds like actual office ambience, like a loud air conditioner or some plumbing in the background. It's a lot more high-pitched. While FNAF 1's ambience felt like a fear fest, FNAF 2, because there's so much more going on, it would make sense that it would offset that by, when things aren't going on, having a lot calmer and quieter ambience. It's still creepy, just less packed. Now, compared to the first game, I think this game just looks a lot less scary. That doesn't mean the game isn't scary, but it just means it packs a lot less of a punch. So instead, I just want to talk about some standout sequences and some cool designs. Your office feels a lot less claustrophobic in this game, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's less scary. I mentioned in the first game that the doors feel very protective. They feel like a good line of defense. However, despite looking more high-tech than the first game, the flimsy flashlight and mask do not.
How do
make
you all
feel
find
safe
motivation
at
to be
all.
alive? I am
Instead,
just
you feel
so tired
completely
today.
exposed the entire time, which makes it really scary. The fear of the second game feels less like being stuck in a small space and more like the fear of being in the middle of the ocean with nothing around. At any moment, something can come for you from the depths. The characters in this game are just not scary, to me at least. They still capture that uncanny valley feeling, but they just don't creep me out as much. The toys, while still definitely feeling very off, still feel like their namesake, toys. I will say though, Toy Bonnie sliding across the screen you put your mask on is really creepy. And then there's the Wizards and Mangle. Now, instead of feeling too sleek or clean, they feel too destroyed. I know a lot of people were really scared by Withered Bonnie, but he felt like he was just trying too hard to me. I still think the designs are cool. I think Withered Freddy is my favorite iteration of Freddy, and Withered Bonnie is pretty badass. But they're just a little too over the top for me to find them scary. With one exception. Withered Chica. I don't know why, I don't know what it is, but Withered Chica is fucking terrifying to me. Literally probably the scariest animatronic in the whole series, for me at least. She's reminiscent of a fucked up scarecrow and is legitimately scary to me after all these years. The missing hands, unhinged jaw, and terrifying eyes. It's amazing. The renders in this game are actually really interesting because they're a lot more packed, with different characters showing up in the same room a lot more. But aside from some cool imagery, there's not a lot there. Unlike in FNAF 1, where it was very difficult to make out who was where, as long as you use the flashlight and the camera, it's pretty easy to keep track of everyone. Not that you'll be doing much of that in later nights, instead just using the camera to wind up the music box. Holy Mary, Mother of God. This is when the Five Nights at Freddy's story and secrets went off the deep end. But before we get into that, let's talk about some less important Easter eggs and secrets, starting with some hidden characters. Very rarely you can see this bare endoskeleton either in the prize corner or in your vent. He can't actually attack you, but apparently he can block other characters from entering the vent, meaning he's actually an asset to the player. Exactly his lore relevance or meaning is not entirely known, and it's possible he's just a fun Easter egg. There's also a couple hallucination characters, Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie. Shadow Freddy rarely appears in the parts and service room and will crash your game if you look at him for too long. I also want to point out that I believe I was one of the first people on YouTube to have encountered this, uploading my video with the encounter literally one day after the game's release. Shadow Bonnie, later known as RWQFSFASXC, will appear in the office at times, and I believe it will crash your game as well, but I'm not 100% sure. And then there's the more minor Easter eggs. The puppet hallucination in the hall and the paper plate doll from Party Room 4 disappearing and then reappearing in your office. Oh, and JJ. I don't know what's up with her. She's down there. There's also the rare death screens and opening screens, much like the first game, with just sort of dark, eyeless versions of the characters. And then, in between nights, you get these sort of cutscene where you're from Freddy's perspective looking back and forth. First, it's the other animatronics looking at you, then Golden Freddy, then the puppet. Again, I'm not going to get super deep into the lore relevance of this, but I have to say, when you first boot up that game, it was shocking. But let's talk about the part you've all been waiting for, the death minigames. Now, this sort of Atari minigame style storytelling has basically become inseparable from FNAF at this point, but at the time we had never seen anything of the sort. So when you died and this happened, it was mind-blowing. Rarely, after dying, instead of being taken back to the menu, you will be transported into an Atari-style minigame. Each minigame reveals some aspect of the lore and introduces the all-important purple guy. Now, exactly how all of these fit into the lore in modern FNAF is not entirely clear, so I'm going to be taking them at face value as they appeared at the time. In this game, you play as Freddy, giving cake to various children at a party. The children get more angry the longer they've gone without cake, so it's sort of a simplified restaurant game. However, the important part is what's happening outside of the restaurant. A child stands outside crying. After a while, a car pulls up and the Purple Man steps out and seemingly kills the child and drives away. While all of this is happening, Freddy is getting slower and a creepy voice spells out the words, "Save him." Finally, the game ends with the marionette jump-scaring the player. In this game, you play as Foxy, running from Pirate's Cove into a room of children who all celebrate your arrival. The third time you do this, you can see the Purple Man smiling in the corner, and when you reach the room of children, they're all dead. The game ends with Withered Foxy's jump scare. Here, you play as the marionette. You give out gifts to 4 dead children's bodies, and then you give them life by putting animatronic heads on them. A creepy voice reads out the text, "Help them," and when you finish giving the animatronics heads, Golden Freddy jump scares the camera and the game ends. However, there is one thing to note. On the last frame before Golden Freddy attacks, you can see a 5th child appear in the middle of the room. Here is where things get a little crazier. In this final minigame, the player, as Freddy, follows the marionette around the pizzeria with dead bodies lying in different rooms. Again, a voice spells out, "Save them." There are a couple of different ways for this to end, by either following the marionette, wandering off, or touching the dead bodies. Rarely, there's a chance you will encounter the Purple Man, who attacks Freddy and shuts off the game, but not before the words, "You can't," appear. There is an absurd amount to unpack here, and I'm not going to get into it until we get to the more theory section of this video, but let's just say this. The death minigames were so insane, so packed with speculation and uncertainty, that with such a minimalist style, it's legitimately impressive how Scott Cawthon was able to tell such a dense story. Like I brought up in the beginning when going over the teasers, there was an absurd amount of hype around this game at the time. The teasers just had a way of getting into people's minds, and this is also when the theory crafting section of YouTube really started exploding. 8-Bit Gaming, Dawko, Smike, all started making videos about Five Nights at Freddy's around this time. And although this side of the community did exist before Five Nights at Freddy's 2, this is when it exploded. And this is when game theory started making theories that made any sort of sense. But before we get into that, I just want to highlight some community stuff from back then. The song that recently had a meme resurgence, "It's Been So Long," is a legitimate banger. Like, that instrumental break is fucking amazing. This is also the time where more FNAF fan music began to pop up. This is also when fan games began to be made, with Five Nights at Treasure Island, which is still the most scared I've ever been playing a game, and One Night at Flumpty's and One Night at Flumpty's 2. And then of course there was Vincent. Oh dear God. Also my introduction to the animator Diet Stab, who now does entirely different stuff, but back then that I can't decide FNAF Purple Guy animation slapped for my tiny baby brain. Also, while it may have been released a tad bit after FNAF 3 released, I think Pymation's 5 AM at Freddy's the prequel deserves a spot here. Alright, the theories. Now, it would be impossible to go over all of them, so instead we're just going to talk about some surrounding the death minigames and where the lore was at the time. First off, less a theory and more a confirmed fact at this point, the game is actually a prequel, not a sequel timeline-wise. We can tell for a variety of reasons, the biggest being the fact that your paycheck gives you the date 1987, a year referred to in the past tense in FNAF 1 with the bite of 87. There's also the reference of this new and improved restaurant actually being a remake of a place called Fredbear's Family Diner, which would become a very important name later in the series, but for now just meant that there was at least one location before FNAF 2. And at the end of Night 6, you're told via newspaper that the withered animatronics are going to be repurposed in a new restaurant, presumably the FNAF 1 restaurant. Now, in general, the accepted theory was that the Purple Man killed one child first, as seen in the Take Cake to the Children minigame. This child then became the puppet, and then the Purple Man strikes again. The puppet brings the children to life by having them possess the animatronics. And that's about where the agreement left off. So let's get into this shit.
Purple guy!
The introduction of a new human character was pretty big, let alone someone this iconic. So theories abound. Was there two purple guys, considering they're two different sprites? Last time I checked, this one is still up for debate. Popularized by MatPat's video, was the phone guy purple guy? Was the night guard from FNAF 1 purple guy? Was it the day shift night guard that's referenced by the phone guy? And don't get me started on what the purple guy is holding. A taser, a phone. I'm gonna be honest, I always thought it was just his big funny hand. I mean, his security badge is a different color, why wouldn't what he's holding be too? I don't know.
Was that the bite of 87?
That's right, we're back. There were plenty of possible culprits put forth. Was it the Mangle who jump scares from above right at your frontal lobe area? Was it Withered Foxy? Was it the Shadow animatronics? Some believe that the victim was the Night Guard that we play as, and the canon ending of the game is getting killed by Mangle, because we're the bite victim. Or that the day shift party we're supposed to go to is where we get bit. Others thought it was the day shift guard whose position becomes mysteriously available. Or maybe it's the phone guy. Wait, what? The Shadow animatronics are often overlooked with the advent of the puppet and the purple guy, but they remain one of the most mysterious additions to the game. From lost souls to manifestations of the Purple Man to just hallucinations. Because of how mysterious they are and continue to be, the theories are rather limited, especially back then. I mean, hell, I thought Shadow Freddy was just Golden Freddy when I first saw it. And then there was the theory that the Living Tombstone song was secretly canon, and that they had partnered with Scott Cawthon, which was just not even a little bit true. Alright, in the last video I made, I had a whole dedicated section to my experience, but it felt kind of redundant, so I'm just going to go over how I fit into the community at the time, at the end of the community section. Now, my theories about the game weren't exactly the most popular thing in the world, but it was really interesting to get feedback from a community which I had never experienced before, and the views I was getting were unlike anything I had ever got before. My FNAF 2 Let's Plays never blew up, but I had a fantastic time making them. And like I said earlier, I'm pretty sure I was one of the first people to encounter Shadow Freddy on YouTube. Alright, so where does this game go on the tier list? I'm gonna have to go S tier. The first game goes up there just because it's so iconic. I mean, it's Five Nights at Freddy's 1. But the second game goes there because I legitimately think it's the best Five Nights at Freddy's game. Every aspect of the gameplay is used. It kicked off a way of storytelling that was insane at the time and still is. And it also introduced characters that are going to be important to the series forever. In my opinion, it's the quintessential Five Nights at Freddy's game. I'm sure some people would put it lower because, again, the sort of learning curve and the RNG that is introduced into it is pretty tough, but to me, I think it's the best game. After FNAF 2's release, Scott Cawthon's website was updated to offline. And then, I am still here.
I'm thinking Black Vegas, right here in Atlanta.
I see Atlanta. That's Black Mecca. You build our houses and our businesses, and we become kings.
Welcome back. First off, wow, just wow. The amount of support I've had on these Five Nights at Freddy's retrospective videos is more than I could ever ask for, so thank you so much. Alright, Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Let's get into it. Now, others have pointed out in the past, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was when the game hit its peak in hype.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's 3. This might be the most hyped game in the history of gaming.
The thrilling conclusion, a new animatronic, so many unknowns. So let's start by looking at the teasers and the trailer. I mentioned in the last video that Scott's website turned offline after the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Well, there was a little something more than that. Yet again, we're back to brighten the image. Until next time. Well, that time came pretty soon after. File name FNAF 3. I am still here. And the reveal of a new character. There were people who thought this was Golden Freddy, but it would prove to be yet another new character. Someone who would be arguably the most important character in the entire series. Also, if you brighten it, there's a 3 in the corner, just in case you couldn't tell. What can we use? Again, just in case you couldn't tell. Here we have a bit of a reveal. This is actually a sequel, not a prequel. The old animatronics are scrapped, forgotten, destroyed. And then, when the image is brightened, a little more of our new character. If I remember correctly, this was around the time people started calling the character salvage or amalgamation, because it was believed to be a combination of different parts. Now there's a quote I recognize, an iconic line that would permeate the series forever. The purple text obviously alludes to Purple Guy and is pretty much a dead giveaway as to who this new character truly was, but we'll save that for later. Here we have a reveal of the camera map we'd see in the game, and if you brighten the image we can see a new system, what would later be revealed to be the vent system. Another thing to note, if you flip the map upside down you can see it's very reminiscent of Scott Cawthon's icon. Just a funny little thing. Guess who? Balloon Boy had already been established as a hated character. Not actually hated, just more of a meme because of his annoying laugh and the roll-in gameplay. And that caused this mix of shock and panic at the fact that he may reappear, especially in this nightmarish appearance. Well, no, not that yet. When the image is brightened, you can see the number 10. Exactly what this means is still unclear, but theories range from there being 10 nights to 10 characters to a release date. Again, I still don't think we know what this means. And the Phantoms. While technically Phantom BB was the first reveal, here we have a hint at their incorporation. All in your mind. And then there was the trailer. There was so much surrounding this. From the little things like Bonnie looking at the camera to the iconic line, "He will come back," there's even a scene that, while creepy now, would actually have some crazy lore relevance. But then there's the jump scare. I think this is around the time people started making the Springtrap is a good guy theory, because he just sort of walks at you instead of jumping right at the camera. Oh, did I say Springtrap? The name reveal for this character is wild. On his Steam community page, Scott Cawthon made a seemingly innocuous post about early beta testing of the game. However, certain letters were doubled up. Selecting these letters and putting them together creates the message, "My name is Springtrap." Why this was his name, not exactly clear yet, and people still thought that he was an amalgamation between Bonnie and Golden Freddy. I mean, I guess they were half right, and then the game was released. Ah, fuck. Another fun way Scott Cawthon built hype was by completely trolling the community. Early on in the hype of Five Nights at Freddy's 3 in February, Scott Cawthon made a Steam Greenlight post saying that the game was going to be released early because someone had hacked him and released the game on GameJolt. Downloading the game, however, after this creepy menu screen, would lead you directly into a simple reskin of an old Scott Cawthon game, There Is No Pause Button, which is where Scott got his profile picture, with a Freddy head on. In the background, that classic troll song would play, but that ended up getting changed due to copyright reasons. There was some stuff of actual note in this game, however. For instance, some actual game files were found in the decompile, and a strange number Easter egg that many believe is connected to the Balloon Boy 10 teaser in some way. Also of note, the menu music for this game is the actual menu music for the final game, but just slowed down. But then, on March 2nd, 2015, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was released. This one was really different from the other games. I mean, really different. In one way, I like the concept of this game better than 1 and 2, but on the other hand, it's the only one of the main 4 and sister location that I have yet to beat. Seriously, I have no idea what it is that I'm getting wrong, but I can't seem to figure it out. Plus, it's not as engaging as the first two, so I lose motivation pretty fast. But let's just get into it. First, there's only one animatronic, Springtrap. The phantoms/hallucinations do act as a part of the gameplay, but there's only one character that can kill you, and that's Springtrap. The first night, Springtrap isn't even in the building yet, according to the lore, so instead you just get accustomed to the office. Starting night 2, Springtrap is released into the office, and he can come at you through the vents or from a door on your left. Now, I would go into a gameplay loop, but it isn't quite as simple as the last couple games. Although among players it is considered easier. In FNAF 1 and 2, the cameras were only used mechanically and not to actually keep track of the animatronics. However, in this game, that's the most important part. Springtrap moves from camera to camera either in the vents or around the main building. Once you spot him, you can either use an audio cue to lure him somewhere else in the building or block off a vent, one vent at a time. There are a couple limbo areas, for instance standing outside your office or hanging around outside your door. As far as I remember, if Springtrap is standing in front of your window, you still have a little bit of a chance to lure him away. However, if he's in the doorway, you just sort of have to wait it out or else you'll be jump scared. The Phantoms come in all different shapes and sizes and all have slightly different mechanics. Phantom Balloon Boy appears randomly in the cameras, and if you don't move away from the screen quickly enough, he'll jump scare you. Now, Phantom jump scares don't kill you, instead causing some other havoc, disabling your other systems, but we'll get into that later. Phantom Foxy appears randomly in your office, and if you turn to look at him, he'll jump scare you. Phantom Freddy will appear walking down the hallway in front of you. If you stare at him for too long, he'll jump scare you. Phantom Chica is similar to Balloon Boy, but only appears in the arcade machine on Cam 07. Phantom Mangle appears on the cameras as well, but doesn't jump scare you. Instead, Mangle plays ear-piercing static and stares at you for a while. Phantom Puppet will appear on Cam 08, and will appear in your office if you stare for too long, blocking you from using your camera and maintenance panel for a short period of time. This is where things started to really change from Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and 2. Like FNAF 2, there's no doors, so instead you have to use the defense mechanisms I talked about earlier, audio lures and blocking vents. However, all of these systems, the video, the audio, the vents, have a counterpart in the maintenance panel. Getting jump scared by a phantom, or if you use one of these aspects too much, it will stop working and you need to move to the maintenance panel to fix it. This takes precious time away from trying to keep Springtrap at bay, and God help you if multiple systems fail at once. This was also the first introduction to an extras and cheats menu. Beating different aspects of the game unlocked a cheats menu, a gallery, a jump scares menu, you could play all the different mini games, and an aggressive mode. However, there was no custom night. Now, on a more personal note, I prefer this idea for gameplay in concept way more than the other ones. Like, actually having to use the camera instead of just flipping it up really quick to wind a music box or check on Foxy. You actually have to keep track of Springtrap. But even though I like it so much, I don't know why it's so hard for me, even though it's supposed to be easier by all accounts. It's not easy being green. This game is not afraid to use entirely moldy greens and like dusty browns. From the stained tile walls to the dilapidated wires and animatronic parts, all of this is intentional of course, but we'll get into that. Despite being set 30 years in the future, things are even more jankier and low tech. Now there's a reason for that, but we'll get into that in a second. For now, let's talk about the cameras, the office, and the characters. The office, much like in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, is a lot less claustrophobic than Five Nights at Freddy's 1. In fact, you have to move all the way to the other side of the office to flip up your maintenance panel from your camera. A window stares right at you, a vent on your right, and a door on your left. A box of animatronic parts sits next to your desk, and a Freddy Fazbear suit sits missing parts on a coat rack outside your door. The art, posters, and even plushies on your desk seem somehow even less cute and more uncanny. Despite the rest of the location being lit by bright green stage lights, your office only has a single hanging bulb, keeping you relatively in the dark. The main thing to note, though, is just how wide the office is. Like I said, you have to move all the way from side to side to access the camera and the maintenance panel. It sets up a perfect feeling of hurried tension as you try to fix a broken vent or reset the audio cue in time to save yourself. In my video about Five Nights at Freddy's 1, I talked about how well that game makes you lean in and try and pick apart everything that happens in the camera. Well, it's very similar in this game for a couple reasons. Firstly, it's the main aspect of the game. In later nights of FNAF 1, you don't need to check if Bonnie is in the camera or if Freddy is in the bathroom. It's more of a mechanical gameplay loop, not utilizing the other cameras except Pirate's Cove. But in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, you always need to keep track of Springtrap. The other aspect is how much harder it is to see these cameras. Pure darkness and deep shadows, absurd static, and a character who's the same color as 90% of the map. Actually trying to distinguish Springtrap in the cameras is insanely difficult, which once again means you'll be putting your face right up to the screen, putting yourself in the perfect position to be scared by a phantom animatronic. For the phantoms, I feel very similarly to the characters in the second game. They're cool, but not scary. They're trying too hard, except Chica is kinda creepy. Springtrap, on the other hand, wow. You know, because of his more goofy animations in this game, his design doesn't reach its full potential. He is one of the best slasher-type character designs in video games, maybe even going into movies too. There's a reason there's a huge movement to get Springtrap into Dead by Daylight. This old, moldy machine with visible viscera and gore of a human that is fused inside of it. It's amazing. His bloody skull can be seen through the holes in his head and his mouth, destroyed, ripped, and moldy. Unlike the more uncanny animatronics who seem expressionless, Springtrap radiates too much expression. He seems too alive, like a thinking, breathing creature, which, as half corpse and half robot, he has no right being. And that is why Springtrap is one of the best character designs in the game. And he would eventually make his way up there to be iconic like Freddy and the Puppet. There isn't a lot here that I haven't already said about the other games. Droney, eerie ambience, a stinger that happens when things get a little bit too close, loud and human-like jump scare sounds. There are a couple things I want to mention about this game in particular, though. First, the beep 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 of the breaking ventilation. Paired with the visuals of the blinking red lights, this sound creates pure panic. That's really just a large part of the game, inducing panic in between moments of just dread. Which is what the Sister Location trailer called it. Another thing I want to mention about this game is the glitchiness of the audio. Along with the more janky visual design, which again is on purpose, the audio sounds crunchy. I don't know audio terms. It feels as if the audio itself is glitching, breaking, unstable. This not only adds to the visual feel of decrepitness, but also to the tension behind the broken down and shoddy electronics you're armed with. Much like in FNAF 2, your means of defense do not feel at all reliable, making you feel much more vulnerable, further increasing the fear. Also, in the Between Night minigames, which we'll get back to, there's this really interesting use of 8-bit sounds and then like real-life background ambience. It makes you feel like you're actually playing one of these arcade games somewhere in an old abandoned building. Also, the two ending songs are some of the best pieces of game music ever. I know I say this a lot, but wow. I mean, if you thought Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was convoluted, you haven't seen anything yet. Now, I'm not a guide for how to beat all the secret mini-games and, you know, how to get the good ending, but for now, let's talk about some of the easier stuff, and then I'll go over the basics of that sort of thing. So, the premise. First off, it takes place over 30 years after the first game. And much like the first game, the story is revealed through phone calls. However, it isn't the classic phone guy who first calls you. It's a new character dubbed Phone Dude who has this sort of surfer accent going. He reveals that the location is actually a haunted house attraction based on the rumors surrounding Freddy Fazbear. They've been collecting memorabilia and props from the restaurant. However, due to being so faithful to the original restaurants, the technology you're using, camera, ventilation, is old and janky. The air vents are unreliable and the equipment is a real fire hazard. You are doubling as an actual security guard and as part of the attraction, with people walking past and looking into the window to feel like a real Freddy's restaurant. It hasn't quite opened yet though, because they're waiting to find something that really hooks people, an animatronic. They even contemplate having you dress up in, and I'm saying this verbatim, a furry suit to jump out and scare people. However, on night 2, and so Springtrap has been released into the building. Also, replacing the phone calls as nights go on are these vintage training tapes talking about this new Springlock animatronic, narrated by Phone Guy. Springlock animatronics double as both an animatronic and a suit by sort of compressing the animatronic parts out. They operate with spring locks which keep the animatronic parts out so you can get inside. However, if you were to accidentally trigger one of these, well, you're dead. Now you can start to see what happened to Springtrap. They also mention this back room where you're supposed to bleed out if the spring locks go off while you're inside. Okay, so the basic premise. You're a night guard at a horror haunted attraction, and an evil zombie robot is after you. In between nights, you play these 8-bit minigames, very similar to the death minigames in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which reveal a different story. Each night you play as a different animatronic in a leaking, abandoned pizzeria that seems to resemble the FNAF 1 location closest. A shadowy animatronic figure leads you to a back room which you can't enter, and then Purple Guy attacks, taking the animatronics apart. Finally, on night 5, you play as the crying child, making your way to the back room again, and we see Purple Guy seemingly afraid of you and a few other ghost children. You chase him around the room until he gets inside of a Golden Bonnie springlock suit. However, the suit goes off while he's inside, and boom, he's dead. And now we know that Springtrap is the Purple Guy. Then we get the bad ending? Also, at the end of night 6, we learn via newspaper clipping that Fazbear Fright has burned to the ground. However, Springtrap may have survived the fire. Alright, so I am going to get into how we get the good ending, but first let's go over some smaller Easter eggs. Sometimes this poster will turn into a Spring Bonnie poster, and sometimes you'll be able to see Shadow Freddy over on your office, but it doesn't do anything. Sometimes a paper plate doll will appear in your office, and then there's the classic rare screens of the animatronics, including a mobile-only one. Okay, wow. Here we go. In the in-between night minigames, there are these hints that you can find around the map, numbers, symbols. When applied to the game correctly in the actual nights, you can unlock these secret minigames. Clicking hidden cupcakes, pressing on certain buttons on an arcade machine, or, and the most convoluted one, entering a code on your wall tiles as if they were a keypad.
Scott, seriously? Seriously, Scott? Oh look, here's a wall. Let me just dial in my phone number.
Once you enter these minigames, you can just complete them normally and go back to your night. But that's not how you get the good ending. Instead, you have to glitch each minigame, some in the most convoluted ways imaginable, to give cake to some hidden ghost children. Also of note, in these minigames, we can see a glitchy Shadow Bonnie and a location that is presumably Fredbear's Family Diner, as referenced in the second game, featuring Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie, now known as Spring Bonnie. After you've done that, you can play the Happiest Day minigame, where you, as a child in a puppet mask, wander through a pizzeria until you reach one last crying child. All of the other children from the other minigames join you to give them a birthday cake, and then you can get the regular, not bad ending. Wow, there are a lot of theories here, and we'll get into that later, but just for now, the fact that anybody figured these out is insane to me. At this point, there were a couple different ways to view the game. First, it was the most amazing, scariest game ever made, or there were the people who resented it for being made so quickly and relying mostly on jump scares, or at least that's how they saw it. However, the Let's Play scene was at its peak here. Everybody wanted a piece of the action. I mean, with the only game with an actual end, people thought it was going to be the thrilling conclusion to the biggest horror franchise in a long time. Alright, I've mentioned fan songs on here before. This is when DA Games made his Five Nights at Freddy's 3 song, and The Living Tombstone released their only fan song that I didn't like when it came out. To be fair, it has grown on me, but the old SFM models and the chorus turned me into a little Five Nights at Freddy's fan song elitist. Also, Rumi made a Five Nights at Freddy's 3 song? What? To be fair, it does kind of slap though. There was the fantastic Two Evil Eyes SFM short film. Springtrap really seemed to strike something with people. A serial killer stuck inside of a moldy, disgusting, rusting animatronic. It's a really great character concept. And there were also a lot of hoaxes, or just fan-made leaks in general. The classic SFM, Fazbear Mall, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 trailer, the Freddyland teaser, and of course the hoax screenshots and character reveals. Okay, this was a really interesting time for theories. For all intents and purposes, the main story had been wrapped up at this point. Generally, the consensus on the story was this. Purple Guy, an employee at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, was a serial killer who murdered children at Fazbear Entertainment restaurants. Dressed in a Spring Bonnie costume, he was able to lure children to a back room and kill them. With the help from the puppet, the first victim, the children haunt the animatronics. The puppet helps bring them together, giving the Golden Freddy victim the birthday he never got. Years later, after the franchise has closed, the Purple Man, haunted by the children, goes back to the abandoned restaurant to dismantle the animatronics and get rid of the evidence. However, the spirits chase him into this old spring-locked suit, which goes off due to the leaking ceiling tampering with the spring locks. Now dead, the spirits are set free. However, Purple Guy's spirit now haunts the suit, and 30 years later, he's released into the horror attraction Fazbear's Fright, which burns down not long after. Throw in a little cliffhanger at the end that he survived, and you've got a nice bow on the story. There were still some loose ends, but I feel like this is where Five Nights at Freddy's peaked story-wise. There were also some smaller miscellaneous theories. There was the idea that the Mangle wasn't actually a phantom and instead a physical animatronic roaming the facility, or the idea that the blue jeans, green shirt character was somehow integral to the story popularized by 8-bit gaming. And the idea that this scene in the trailer is actually the same scene in the minigame, which, if true, would be very gruesome. But still, there were those loose ends. The bite of 87 still wasn't solved. Was the Golden Freddy victim the bite victim, or was he killed by the Purple Man at his birthday party? Who the hell are the shadow animatronics? Or these masks in the Happiest Day minigame? Who started the fire? MatPat's theory made a lot of attempts to cover these. The endoskeletons belonged to Golden Freddy. The puppet stuffed the children, not the Purple Guy. Purple Guy used the taser. Phone Guy's recordings being out of timeline in FNAF 2. The bite of 87 being the Mangle. Jeremy being the bite victim. Phone Guy is Purple Guy. The rain is what kills him in the Springlock suit. The bad ending is canon. And so many other timeline issues. Honestly, it felt nice having some closure. That wouldn't last. Alright, so where does the game go on the tier list? Okay, maybe some people will say this is blasphemy, but judging on the Twitter poll that I put up, I think a lot of you agree with me. I'm putting it in B tier. Remember when I said people thought it was easy? Well, that wasn't necessarily a good thing. A lot of people felt like a little disappointed. There wasn't a custom night. It felt like it went by a little too fast, and people thought the gameplay was just lackluster, along with the jump scare. In fact, some people speculate that the reason Scott Cawthon would go on to make a Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was because of how poorly that this game did. It's not that it was terrible, it's just compared to the other two, it doesn't quite hold up gameplay-wise. I might have even put it on C tier if it weren't for the fact that Springtrap was introduced in it, and the story is really amazing in this game. It's just gameplay-wise, it's not great. But I feel like B is a good spot. It's above average. After FNAF 3's release, a new teaser showed up on Scott Games' website with a top hat. And then, it disappeared. And then, so there's Five Nights at Freddy's 3. I have to say, writing this made my head hurt. There's so much going on, and hold on.
Listen carefully. Can you hear the rhythm in the markets? Not just in the syncopations triggered by inflation, but in the preludes leading to global elections, in the dissonance that moves the Nikkei, and the rising chorus conducted by AI. There's music in the markets, and if you want to learn to listen for it, we'll show you how. Learn more at Bloomberg.com.
Welcome back. Today in our ongoing series looking back at the Five Nights at Freddy's games, we're at Five Nights at Freddy's 4, the final chapter. First, I just want to start off by saying thank you for the amazing support on these videos. It is more than I ever could have imagined, so thank you. I also want to say that the next video is going to be about FNAF World, which presents a unique challenge, so it might take a little bit longer than normal to get FNAF World out. With that said, let's start this video about Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Like I said in my Five Nights at Freddy's 3 video, everyone thought the third game was going to be the end to a trilogy. That was the last game, but we know that didn't turn out to be true. Let's take a look at the Five Nights at Freddy's 4 teasers. 4.jpg, a terrifying, cartoonishly so, Freddy Fazbear. A bunch of what would later be known as Freddles crawling all over him. The final chapter, Halloween. Here we have the Was It Me teasers. These are probably my favorite pieces of official FNAF art ever. The lighting, the poses, Foxy's spiking tongue blade, glowing eyes, it's amazing. The "wasn't me" text was interpreted as a lot of different things, but mainly, who did the bite of 87? Which one? This was supposed to be a reveal of one of the biggest ongoing mysteries in the franchise, and people got really hyped. Also, it was the name reveal of these new animatronics, the Nightmare animatronics seen as very lightly visible on the teasers. Then the color purple again, this time not necessarily related to Purple Guy. Who exactly this new purple bow tie belonged to wasn't entirely agreed upon, which wasn't helped by the mystery of what the text at the bottom of the screen said when brightened. Property of... No, yeah, very helpful. However, it was generally believed to say Fredbear's Family Diner or be related to that, or maybe it belonged to Shadow Freddy. Also, there's a smaller light in the corner illuminating a reflection of some sort of jaws, and who these jaws belong to would be revealed in the next teaser. And here we go. Stomach mouth, purple bow tie, black and white body. The reveal of Fredbear. This was confirmed by a secret code in the inspect element of the website. A random set of letters that, when taken back 1 in the alphabet, spelled out Fredbear. Also brightened in the corner is the text, "Or was it me?" Well, you already know, but we didn't back then. Other hidden text includes something that appears to say "property of me." There was also the theory that there's a teeny tiny itty bitty crying child or puppet face, which, looking back on it, makes me realize just how much we were reaching back then. And terrible things come in small packages. A tiny Springtrap plush, now known as Plush Trap. And here's where things begin to get strange. This no longer looked like a pizzeria, it looked like a house. And of course, there were more theories out there about this. 8-Bit Gaming posited that the window in the back of Mangle's quest were these same windows. I love 8-Bit Gaming, but they must have pulled their backs out with some of these reaches. This would also inspire the worst piece of Five Nights at Freddy's fan art ever, not because of lack of talent, but just because the way that it is. If you know, you know. Also, another thing to note really quickly is that in the source code of Scott's websites and a lot of these points, the numbers 8 and 7 were hidden all over the place. Obviously, we know what that means now. Then there was the trailer. What is it that you think you see? Flashlight in an empty hallway. Clock chimes. What game do you think you're playing? Boom. Terrifying. This line right here, "What have you brought home?" was cause for a lot of speculation. Assuming it was a sequel instead of a prequel, people figured that maybe you bought it from the auction at the end of FNAF 3. But who would want these in their house? Maybe you were playing as the son of Purple Guy. Well, this also revealed that there would be more than just one screen, one office. Each door had a screen. You could run around the room, and there was even a view of a hallway with a plush trap. People speculated that this was similar to the game Five Nights at Wario's, where each night you are in a different part of the house. But all of these questions would be answered when, as usual, Scott Cawthon released the game ahead of schedule, July 23rd, 2015. Now, I know I say this every single time, but Five Nights at Freddy's 4 really changed the game gameplay-wise. No longer did you have the power of industrial electronics to fend them off, only a weak flashlight and your creaky doors. Before we get into the gameplay loop, which does change at times, let's talk about the aspects of the gameplay. That's right, movement. The first game to really have any sort of movement. You have a few places you can move to in your room. First, the center of your room. Here is where you can choose what part of your room you want to move to. You can go in front of you, you can swipe down to look behind you, or click on your left or right. Your closet is in front of you where you can use the light and hold the door closed. On either side of you, you can run up to the doors and look down the hall. You can hold the doors closed here too and use the light. And then, looking behind you, you can see your bed. Your two lines of defense in this game are your flashlight and the doors. Unfortunately for you though, you can't just press a button to close these doors. You have to actively be there holding them closed yourself. Their default state is open. The light works much like FNAF 2, just using control to shine it. The doors keep the animatronics out, and the light scares them away. Now once again, these things change depending on the night, but mainly this is what you'll be dealing with. Now let's talk about the main characters. The main characters are Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy. Bonnie and Chica come to either the left or right door respectively. If you can catch them in the hallway with your flashlight, you can hold them off for a moment. However, don't get too overzealous with your light. If they're too close and you shine it, they'll jump scare you. That's the main way you'll die in this game. So how do you tell if they're close to you? You listen for their breathing. I know, it's weird that the animatronics have breath, but that's the mechanic. So you open the door, listen for breathing. If you hear it, hold the door closed. If you don't, shine your light to scare them off. They don't just jump scare you from the doors though. If you let them come in, they can kill you too, either Bonnie attacking you in your room or Chica sending in the cupcake. I don't know. Freddy works in a very different way. Checking on your bed, these little evil Freddy plushes slowly begin to pile up over time. Shining your light on them scares them away. If too many pile up, Freddy will come out from under your bed and jump scare you. Honestly, I think there's a real missed opportunity here for you to actually see Freddy under your bed, but these Freddles are pretty scary anyway. And Foxy. He moves back and forth around the halls too. However, he doesn't jump scare you from the door, and when he gets in, he doesn't kill you either. Instead, he hides in the closet, which you will be notified of by this little animation. From here, he has a few different phases, first being a plush and then becoming a monster until he finally climbs out of your closet. You can check his phase by using the flashlight for a moment and hold the door closed to make him slowly move back in phases. So despite not having a camera or a maintenance panel to deal with, there's all these different complementary aspects of gameplay that mean you'll always be on the move. With that, let's look at the main gameplay loop. Now there are many different strategies people use to beat this game. Some of it relies on memorizing exactly what certain sound cues mean, some of it relies on mechanically going back and forth in an exact loop, but all of them use at least a few of the same aspects. Check the doors. Bonnie and Chica are always going to be the most imminent threat, and keeping Foxy at bay by shining the light before he gets in will only make your life easier. In between almost every other action you do, check the bed. While Freddy may be the person you die to the least, if you let him sneak up on you and forget, you're in for a rude surprise. And check Foxy regularly. Like Freddy, making sure to check on him every few actions is very important. There's a few things that we haven't talked about yet. First, fun with Plush Trap. In between nights, you get a chance to skip 2 hours in the next night by completing a minigame. You are sitting at one end of a hall with a plush version of Springtrap from the third game sitting on a chair. It will only move if you have the lights off. A timer ticks down and your goal is to stop Plushtrap on this X before the time runs out. Only problem is, if Plushtrap gets too close, you get jump scared and fail. If the time runs out, you fail. This would seem hard, but thanks to the dedicated community, you can beat it pretty easily by following specific times to use your flashlight that they trial and errored. The other time it gets different is on night 5. You run around from door to door, looking behind you, expecting to see some Freddles or hear some breathing, but there's nothing. Instead, after a moment, you hear this. And that's when you know some shit is going down. There's only one animatronic in the house, Fredbear, Golden Freddy. He can appear anywhere, either door behind you in the bed, in the closet. The only way to keep track of him is using the sounds of his footsteps moving quickly back and forth, or the sound of his laughter. If he laughs, he's in your room somewhere, on your bed or in your closet. If he's in the closet, shut the door. If he's on your bed, shine the light on him. You can check him at the door with the flashlight, but be careful. Looking too long or flashing the light too many times will activate his jump scare. This use of turning the gameplay upside down completely on the last night creates a sense of panic rarely seen in the other games.
Gay ASF.
What the frick?
I should also mention, much like FNAF 3, there's an extras menu that unlocks cheats, a gallery, and more, the more difficult nights you beat. Night 5, the Night 6, Nightmare mode, and the Secret 2020 mode, which we'll talk about later. We also got some interesting behind-the-scenes stuff looking at how some of the models were created. Oh, and Night 6. It starts like a normal night, except really difficult, but at 4 AM it changes to a harder version of Night 5, except instead of Nightmare Fredbear, it's a new character simply known as Nightmare. Visually, this game changed the pace the most out of any game so far. Now, there was a lot of differences in the visuals, but there was always a through line in the previous 3 games, a security office. However, just from the menu alone, which is amazing by the way, you can tell we're in a completely different environment. The location of a house brought the game series into the realm of haunted house media like Poltergeist and The Conjuring. The visual of the menu also helps a lot with the world building. Even though we see a relatively small portion of the actual house inside, just by seeing the house here, we get a sense of the actual space the world exists in. The room in which the main game takes place is pretty good at creating a very certain atmosphere. Old wallpaper, plush carpet, toys lying on the ground, a lava lamp, photos, and stars plastered on the wall. It creates a real feeling of nostalgia, almost melancholy, which is emphasized by the music, but we'll get into that later. Another thing to note is all the little homages to certain staples of the game. A robot toy, a toy phone, a fan. From the hallways outside the door to the fun with plush trap room, the house feels big and empty. It gives you a feeling of being small, not just emphasizing the fact that you're a child, but that you really aren't in control. The animatronics loose in the house really have a sense of scale because of how open and empty the house feels. You get the feeling that there's nobody else in the house to help, no parents to run to, no one else the animatronics are after. It's just you. And here we are again. I'm gonna be 100% honest, the Nightmare animatronics are not scary at all. The teaser art made it look pretty cool, but especially in-game, there's absolutely no fear factor when it comes to actually seeing them. In fact, sometimes when I see them at the end of the hall, I just get relieved. As with the other games, the more that they go over the top and try and one-up the last game, they lose the feeling of the uncanny valley that made them scary in the first place. Now, there's something to be said about how they match with the canon and the lore of the game, but when it comes to just seeing them in-game, there really isn't any fear factor, and some parts, like the cupcake jump scare, make me lose all tension. On some more specific notes, I feel like Nightmare Freddy really got the short end of the stick here. His design is a little bland, especially when compared to Nightmare Fredbear or Nightmare Foxy. Also, a note on Nightmare Foxy. Foxy clearly had the design change of removing the big spiky tongue, which for a long time was speculated to be to deter the more undesirable fan art. But I think it was later stated by Scott to be just that it was harder to animate. Alright, even with all of my criticisms of the visuals, this is the only Five Nights at Freddy's game that still scares me. Even though the characters themselves don't look that scary, it's the fact that you see so little of them that really adds to it. The only time that you get to see them is after you're already dead. The mix of wide open spaces, panicked gameplay, and silence adds up to create something that still scares me even so many years after its release. Where the visuals may have lacked, the audio is amazing. It is the best in the series, and it's really makes up and carries the entire game. From the creepy chorus-like menu music to the dark droney ambience to the creepy footsteps and the barely audible breathing, it brings it all together and makes it legitimately terrifying. Just listen. It feels almost too real while elevating the level of dread and fear. But let's get into a little more detail. The ambience actually has a lot of different pieces. There's the drone in the background and the reverberating bells, but there are a lot of little touches that build the atmosphere and make it seem like there's actually a world outside of the house. The grandfather clock chiming, a dog barking outside, or the distant sound of wind chimes. It gives a lot of depth to the soundscape, and I think it's the scariest background ambience of any FNAF game. In contrast, the fun with plush trap ambience is a little more focused and overt with its churning, almost water-like background ambience. This really separates it from the main gameplay, but the two still feel very connected. There's a lot of different sounds that act as components to the gameplay, from the creak of the door to the jump scare to the frettles and the breathing. The jump scare, much like the animatronics, is a little over the top and monstrous. It definitely doesn't feel very robotic, but I suppose that fits with the plot. It also fits with the other non-robotic aspect, the breathing. Interestingly, the breathing you hear in this game is not exactly what it sounded like when the game first released. The audio was originally too quiet, so the volume was increased in a later update. Okay, I could talk about the audio forever here, but for the sake of time, I want to talk about one more aspect. Nightmare Fredbear's laugh. In Five Nights at Freddy's 1, Freddy's laugh sounded almost like crying, but in FNAF 4, Fredbear's laugh is evil and sinister. Not only is it lore relevant, there's an aspect to it that is really uniquely scary to me. When I was younger, I would have these recurring nightmares about these two siblings coming into my room and debating whether or not they were going to kill me, and the older brother sounded exactly like this. So there's that sort of unique aspect that makes it extra creepy to me. Unlike the other games, Phone Guy isn't here to explain the premise. He's not in the game at all, actually. Well, kinda. Instead, you just get a tutorial. Instead, the game opens with a countdown, 5 days until the party. And here we go. So before the start of each night, you are thrown into a mini-game, counting down the days until the party. In these mini-games you play as this crying child, tormented by his brother and guided by this creepy Fredbear plush. We learn that this kid is terrified of the animatronics and apparently witnessed something terrifying. You soon learn that this party is this kid's party. After you beat night 5, it's the day of the party. The older brother and his bully friends further torment the crying child until...
Was that the bite of 87?
And so, at least for the time being, we figured out the bite of 87. Until the 1983 date came up, but whatever. After beating night 6, the crying child is seen in a void, with a voice talking to him. Who exactly is speaking is up for debate. Then his plushes, including his Fredbear friend, disappear and a quiet sound of a flat line is heard. There are plenty of other little secrets in minigames and gameplay. Of course, there's the 1983 TV with the Fredbear and friends. Phone Guy is also technically in the game. A distorted and slowed version of his Night 1 FNAF 1 phone call can be heard sometimes in the ambience. Some people have pointed out that this is where the bite of 87 is first mentioned, further putting the focus of the game on this. In one area of the minigame, you can double back and see Purple Guy helping someone in a springlock suit. And another large part of the theory crafting section, your bed. Behind you are items on your bedside table that will change. Flowers, a bottle of pills, and an IV bag. If you're not looking in the heat of gameplay, you won't notice it, but the changes are definitely there. Less of a secret and more like a fun fact, the pictures on the wall are of Scott and his family. And then there's 2020 mode. By going into the extras menu and typing 2020 into your keyboard, you unlock an extra and hard night, although it doesn't reveal anything besides giving you an extra star. But I know what you're thinking. There's something else, something missing, and you're right. There is one last thing. After beating Nightmare mode, you get a screen of a box. The box. Clicking on the 2 locks moves them slightly, but there's no way to open it. There were countless attempts, even going into the source code to find out. After a while, the text appears on screen. Perhaps some things are best left forgotten, for now. And so it began. Alright, this is the motherload of theories, so we'll get to that last. For now, it's pretty much the usual stuff. The fan songs, Break My Mind, slaps so hard. Fan games, there was a really cool Iron Horse Cinema, Five Nights at Freddy's 4 short film. If I remember correctly, this is when the hate train for Five Nights at Freddy's really picked up because of the infamous Five Nights at Freddy's PewDiePie video where he wasn't scared at all.
Okay, bud.
Of course, there was the Bite of 87 meme that came up more recently as like a meme resurgence. On a more personal note, this was the first game I ever actually finished. And Scott Cawthon also made a Halloween update. There was a lot of debate about what all of this update meant in the story, but Scott Cawthon clarified that it was largely non-canon, so it was more just for fun. Okay, theories. There are so many theories for this, it would be insane to try and cover them all, so I'll break it up into 4 points. The bite, the main story, the box, and of course, Dream Theory. The bite. Now, the most obvious explanation for this bite scene is that it's the bite of 87. But the entire thing was thrown into question with the 1983 Easter egg. There were 2 ways to interpret this. This was actually a separate bite called the Bite of 83, or this was the Bite of 87, and the 1983 date was the date of Fredbear's founding. In the current FNAF lore meta, I have no idea what the more accepted theory is, but there you go. To me, this being the Bite of 87 makes the most sense because Scott was literally telling us it was in the source code earlier. Then again, it wouldn't be the first retcon in the series, so there's that. Okay, so the main story. How exactly does this all fit in? Well, most people generally believe that this was the old location Phone Guy talked about before FNAF 2, and in between FNAF 2 location and the location seen in the Save Him minigame. But when exactly this took place was still up for debate. 1983 or 1987. There was also theories about who we were actually playing as. A very popular theory is that we weren't the crying child victim at all. We were his brother, seeing imagery of the hospital room of his brother whose death was his fault, haunted by the masks and the imagery of the restaurant and his friends who helped him make the worst mistake of his life. Finally, Fredbear confronts him in the final night, attacking him now. It's a decent theory. Alright, the box. What the fuck was inside? Theories range from Springtrap to the puppet to a meta-analysis of the community as a whole. Scott ended up addressing it in a community post saying that it's one of the only mysteries the community has yet to solve, and ending it by saying some things are best left forgotten forever. To be honest, as the game moved on, the box has sort of been forgotten, and I'm not really going to have a chance to talk about it except if I decide to make a series like this on the books. So I want to talk about this specific point right here. This was a sort of retrospective stream that Markiplier did with his friend Tyler, who didn't really know much about the games. There's plenty of theories and ideas thrown out, most of which weren't exactly groundbreaking or even correct, but there's one moment when they're talking about the box that I remember.
Well, my question would be, with 2 locks, it makes me think like 2 different people have to have keys to open the box.
I've never thought of that. Oh. See, this is why I bring him here. I've never thought of that.
Makers of the animatronics, like, are there 2 people that made them?
Are there? There are! Because Sister Location just established that. Because there are!
It's moments like that, these moments of sudden realization where pieces start coming together and you have this light bulb go off that I think perfectly captures why the theory community grew so big. It's these aha moments. Speaking of aha moments, the dream theory. During a stream by MatPat with some of the biggest theorists in the community at the time, Scott Cawthon began live updating his site to communicate with them. All of these questions and hints led to this little moment.
Here's a weird, this is weird. Okay, but it's one of the things that immediately jumps to my mind. Is it possible, again, this is completely off the wall, is it possible that FNAF 2 didn't actually happen?
And it was just, yeah, I know what you mean.
Similar to FNAF 4, which takes place inside the mind of a child, you know, is it possible that FNAF 2 also took place in the mind of a child? You know, maybe, again, this tortured boy. Also think about the element of putting on a mask. You know, you have a child maybe putting on a mask, or you have the brother who has shown himself to regularly put on a mask. You know, again, this is without having any time.
And so began the dream theory. For a full explanation, watch MatPat's video. But I remember the feeling of what seemed like we had finally uncovered everything. Almost the whole story could be explained. Sure, it was a bit of a cop-out, but that's why Scott said he wondered if the community would accept it. Obviously, it turned out to be completely wrong, and it sounds kind of insane thinking about it now, but part of me really felt at the time like this was a good thing. We had finally solved everything, and most parts at the time seemed to fit. I just had the sense that the story had been solved. What a naive little shithead I was. Okay, so where does this game land? I'll probably get some shit for this, but I'm putting it in B tier. A lot of people think that I've seen at least that it's one of the worst games in the whole series, but like I said, it's one of the only ones that still scares me. And yes, the visuals aren't great, and yes, that is sort of when the story started going downhill, but in general, the audio is really great, it's still really scary, and even with all of the other stuff, I think it deserves to be at least on the same level as Five Nights at Freddy's 3. And so would begin the most different, the most insane. If you thought Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was different, you haven't seen anything yet. FNAF World. Welcome back. Today we're continuing our Five Nights at Freddy's retrospective series. Today, FNAF World. This game is the most different out of any Five Nights at Freddy's game to date. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better, but it definitely changed things the most. So without further ado, let's get into it. After FNAF 4, the classic thank you image was uploaded on Scott's site. Basically all of the characters waving and saying thank you. It seemed like it was a real send-off to the game. However, people then started noticing something changing, certain characters' designs looking slightly different, more cartoony, and this culminated in the reveal of the name, FNAF World. With a few interruptions for FNAF 4's game theory stream and some Halloween update stuff, we had revealed all of the new designs for this FNAF World project. And then, of course, the trailer. Creepy. Eerie heads zooming in with ominous text and music, and then a cartoon turn-based RPG. Okay then. And the Mangle using a ping pong paddle for some reason. I don't remember a lot of theories of substance surrounding these reveals besides it possibly just being another prank game. It was just so odd, it didn't really make a lot of sense. So I guess we can move on, because January 21st, 2016, FNAF World was released. Now you might think we'd move right on to gameplay, but things were a little complicated and controversial with the release of FNAF World. Unlike what was shown in the trailer, the overworld was just simple 8-bit art. The game had a variety of other issues, being generally unstable and unfinished. It originally cost $10, which was more than any other FNAF game. So people were disappointed. But what Scott did next, I think, shows that he was a developer of integrity. He offered refunds to everyone who had bought it, removed it from Steam, and later, in February of 2016, he released an updated, finished version on GameJolt. This time with the 3D overworld and many of the issues fixed. And so that's the version we're going to be talking about. Let's go. Now, it would be stupid to compare this gameplay to the gameplay of any other FNAF game. It's a turn-based RPG. But also, I don't really know a lot about RPGs either, so I'm just gonna call it like I see it. I think it'd be most useful to break it down into a few sections. The basics, characters, chips and bytes, and areas. The basics are pretty normal. You can play the game on normal or hard, and with or without a fixed party. As Freddy, you wander the overworld, advancing the story. Randomly, like in Pokemon Grass, you will have encounters with enemies in groups or by themselves. These move you to a separate battle screen where you fight. Interestingly, this isn't a normal turn-based game. The characters in your party work on a sort of timed order which they can attack, but so do your enemies. So instead of specific turns, you can time certain attacks or moves to defend against the enemies. Certain areas will also have boss encounters, which are just like regular battles, but harder, and you can see their health. You can use money you get from chests around the overworld, beating enemies, or Dee Dee's fishing game to buy helpful things like armor, bytes, and chips. If you do fixed party, you are stuck with only a few that you select at the beginning of your two parties, but you start with more unlocked. In adventure mode, you start with the classic FNAF 1 characters in one party, and then the FNAF 2 characters in your second party. As you play, certain encounters will lead you to a new challenger. It will be a random character from the games that will be added to your roster if you beat it. Obviously, the harder to beat and the higher level, the better the moveset is. Each character has an arsenal of 3 attacks or moves. Some are more heal-centered, some are more support or debuff-centered, some are more damage or just straight-up random chance-based. This is where the game becomes most interesting. Now, the depth of customization isn't as much as other RPGs, but finding exactly how you want to balance with what characters in each party and using your first and second party uniquely is where the interesting and fun part of the game happens. Oh, also between loading screens you get little character flavor text. With the introduction of a now fan favorite, Lolbit sells things called bytes. These are miniature characters that can't die but also don't count as a part of your health. They have a range of different abilities, from healing to damage dealing to bosses to their own small attacks. There are usually 3 levels of each type, and you can add up to 4 active at a time. Chips are similar in a lot of ways. You find them in various large chests in the overworld. You equip them to have certain passive effects, and can only have 4 at a time. These effects range from damage dealing, comets falling, to giving your team a speed boost, to giving you more luck. This is again where things become interesting. You know, depending on what you're actually trying to do, find characters, defeat a boss, or just level up, you're going to use different chips and bytes, and deciding which ones to use because you only have a few slots becomes really interesting and a fun balancing act. Throughout the game there are different biomes and areas. The bosses and enemies change based on the biome as you progress. Snowy characters, rocky cave creatures, weird funhouse guys. Enemies in these areas usually get harder as you progress, and the bosses are usually pretty unique. Then there's the flip side, an obvious reference to Phone Guy's line, "See you on the flip side" from FNAF 1. These are glitched areas deep inside the game you enter by walking into flickering objects in the overworld. They take you to more and more simplified versions of the overworld, which you can use to get around blocked areas. However, as Fredbear warns, don't go too deep. But what makes it scary? Absolutely nothing. Obviously, it's not supposed to look scary. All the characters are redesigned to look cute. Although I will say, certain times, just like with Nightmare Balloon Boy, it can't be made cute, and although some of the designs are really great, like the nightmares, sometimes in an attempt to make them look cute, they look scarier than they did in the original game. Here's another thing about the visuals. They are insane. Later on in the game, it's just a million particle effects and screen shake. I personally really like the chaos. It makes it feel like shit is going down, but to others it may seem more obnoxiously bright and distracting. But to each their own. When it comes to enemies and bosses, a lot of them are legitimately well done. Brow Boy is a masterpiece. Some enemies are just retextures, but I suppose that was an attempt to create enemy types. Each biome's adherence to a specific style is legitimately impressive, and it makes the whole game feel cohesive. There's not much to say here like there is with the other games. The music is really great, each area has a unique backing track that sound good and are memorable, and all the boss battles and fights are high energy because of the really good fight music. The sound effects for each move are satisfying and really cool. Honestly, just the sound in general in FNAF World excels, but there's not anything special about the way it does it. Just good music and nice sound effects. Now there are so many endings and hidden secrets in this game, but let's just start with the basics. The game opens with a pair of pixel eyes staring in the darkness, and the lines, "Everything that happens out there has an effect here. Do you understand? This is a safe place. This is a sanctuary. But something has gone wrong, and now it can be seen here. Something went very wrong. That's why I'm here. But I won't let the same happen to you. I will put you back together." The rest of the game centers around you progressing with the advice of Fredbear. At certain points in the game, including right after this cutscene, Fredbear explains the main motivation. There is something horribly wrong with this animatronic world. Something has gone wrong on the flip side, and now strange creatures are wandering the world. From here, Fredbear sends you through new missions, beating bosses, and exploring new areas, finally ending in you disabling a security system and defeating the final boss. And then you get the wink ending. After defeating the boss, you enter a tent and get mocked by a voice, likely Scott Cawthon himself. Congratulations, you beat an imaginary monster in an imaginary game without taking any risks, without finding anything interesting. Literally mocking you for beating the game, which might seem odd, but with a game series that is so centered around secrets and hidden things, this was making it clear that there was something more. And there was. Playing through the game normally, but on hard mode, you defeat the final owl boss, security, and then move into the tent. This time, it leads you to the real final boss, Scott Cawthon himself. He gives you a monologue that seems almost like venting his frustrations with some aspects of being popular and having his games dissected so much. Although this seems to be another way to motivate the player to look deeper. Defeating him will give you the end. Remember how I said Fredbear tells you not to go too deep in the flip side? Well, if you go 4 layers deep, you are teleported to Old Man Consequence's lake. A strange fisherman tells you that there's nothing else the player can do. After a bit, the game ends. By walking into the lake and glitching down, you begin falling endlessly in a void for 2 minutes. Finally, it cuts to an image. What exactly this is has been debated. An angel, Scott Cawthon and his kids. Either way, it will stay here until you shut the game off. Whichever character you have as a party leader will appear when talking to Fredbear. If you get Fredbear as your party leader and then talk to Fredbear, well, there's 2 of them. And as the game explains, there cannot be 2 Fredbears in the same time and space. So the game ends. Universe end. This end occurs when you enter the mysterious mine and move to a secret boss, Chipper, as in from Scott Cawthon's previous game before FNAF, Chipper and Sons Lumber Company. Essentially, Chipper is upset that his franchise was set aside for FNAF, and that's why he wants to destroy you. After you defeat him, he says you haven't seen the last of him, which to be fair is true. And finally, the clock ending. See, when talking to Fredbear at the end of his dialogue, you get a done button. But if you don't press it, after a while, Fredbear will glitch and begin breaking the 4th wall, leading you on a different objective, finding the clocks. When activating these secret dialogue options, clocks will begin appearing on the overworld. Each has a unique puzzle. The first has the player pushing Balloon Boy into a box, the second has the player activating 4 square buttons, then pushing 4 cupcakes into boxes, then properly setting a code, and then finally pushing Shadow Bonnie, known in this game as RWQFSFASXC, into a box. If you do all of this, the glitched Fredbear leads you to unlocking a portal, which leads you to the final cutscene. The eyes in the dark again. We are still your friends. Do you believe that? The pieces are in place for you. All you have to do is find them. Rest. The end. Alright, now before we get into theories and what the clock ending means and what all of this means, let's just talk about some of the more simpler Easter eggs and hidden things. Oh, also, each ending has a unique trophy that once you get it will appear on your menu screen. First, you can enter the secret other area that's like a glitched version of the overworld, identified as just random letters. Here, there are much harder and glitchy enemies. You enter by walking into this seagull on a stump for a bit. There's also the Pearl, which you get if you successfully catch the Pearl in Dee Dee's fishing game 5 times. It doesn't count to your bite limit and heals you. Alright, with that out of the way, for most of this I want to talk about the clock ending and what the community really thinks it means. But first, let's talk about some of the simpler stuff, general audience reception and things like that. Firstly, a lot of YouTubers known for playing Five Nights at Freddy's, like Markiplier for instance, decided not to play this game, and I can't blame them. The appeal of playing a Five Nights at Freddy's game or a Let's Play of a Five Nights at Freddy's game is different than the appeal of FNAF World. FNAF World is not scary, and it's also not super long, so there's not a lot of investment you can get out of it. It's more of a joke fun game, and so I guess I understand why the release was a bit rocky. On a more personal note, watching Razbowski play this game inserted the term "pop it on the go" into my general lexicon for 2 years. Okay, here we go. What does the clock ending mean? Well, the first and most obvious connection would be the Fredbear plush, and the line, from Five Nights at Freddy's 4, "I will put you back together." And there is a connection there, but first, let's talk about what each of the clock minigames mean. The main theory concluded by the community was that each of these clock minigames corresponded to a secret minigame in FNAF 3. Specifically, the hints on how you get to these minigames, the different things on the walls. BB double click, the arcade button code, the cupcakes, the code, and Shadow Bonnie. Now think about the line, "I will put you back together." That's FNAF 4, the bite victim. Now think about what happens at the end of the Happiest Day minigame. The children gather together to help free the soul of the Golden Freddy victim. I think you can see where I'm going here. Due to the meta nature of the game, it's assumed by the community that when Fredbear said, "I will put you back together" in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, he meant it in a very fourth wall breaking way. He literally goes to the player through FNAF World to put in place the hints that lets the Five Nights at Freddy's 3 player, not the Night Guard, the player who actually plays the games, be able to discover the Happiest Day ending, therefore putting him back together. It's weird how it's almost canon in a way, but super meta, like the Fredbear plush knows that he's in a game. Really weird. Now, I want to be clear here, it's not 100% confirmed that this is what all of this means. This just seemed to be the general community consensus when the game came out. And at least for Update 1, that is the relevance to these games at large. So, where does the game go on the tier list? Well, despite all of the good things I've said about it, when we're rating it on a scale like the other games, it really doesn't hold up as well. At least for Update 1, even though I enjoyed it, I have to be honest and put it in C tier. The story for Update 1 was really not that important in the grand scheme of things, and the game had a bit of a rocky start when it was released, so I think C tier is a perfect place for it. It's just average. So, Scott Cawthon's website. Instead of teasing a new game, he teased a book, Five Nights at Freddy's: The Untold Story. And I would like to talk about this at some point. Maybe when I'm done looking at all of the games, I can look at the first trilogy, the Silver Eyes trilogy. But for now, we're just going to talk about the game. So ignoring the book for now, the next game that was teased was FNAF World Update 2.
It's a vicious cycle, but then most things in life are. The pendulum swings one way, then it swings the other. Now, we return to darkness. Something terrible is coming.
Alright, FNAF World Update 2. If you didn't think things could get even weirder, you're about to be proven wrong. I want to bring up some background though, for Update 2 and just for the game before its initial release. Scott Cawthon was not originally a horror game developer. He was an RPG developer, and he's been making games for a long time. Since 1995 with the game Floppy Disk, he made a whole series called RPG Max, Dinostria, and the Legacy of Flan games, including a multiplayer Legacy of Flan and the online MMORPG Flanville. I could keep going forever. He has made so many games before FNAF. But let's just say FNAF World was not a new venture for Scott. With that in mind, let's move on. I want to mention that after the first FNAF World teasers were done, there was a new site that was created called FNAFworld.com. This will be important as we move on to other retrospective series, so keep that in mind. For teasers, it was pretty simple, with the exception of one. Update 2, coming soon. The additions of the FNAF 4 Halloween characters, and in the corner, Foxy, JJ, and Chica in airplanes in the background. Then, on April 1st, Scott Cawthon set a teaser for a new game, FNAF 57, Freddy in Space. Obviously this was just an April Fool's joke, but keep it in mind. Then we were back to the original teaser with new text, 5/13/16. With the release now set, the stage was set, no pun intended, for something new. But as a game, FNAF World Update 2 was in a weird spot. At the time of its release, there was another Scott Cawthon project being teased on ScottGames.com, the book had been released, and the movie had been announced. There were tons of other teasers and hints to all sorts of other projects coming around the same time, and so people weren't sure exactly what connected to what, and it wasn't exactly clear how Update 2 was going to come out. We'd just have to wait until release. And strangely, it released on time, May 13th, 2016. So right away you boot up the game and it looks the same. It isn't inherently obvious that something has changed. It's actually really strange how you have to activate the content of this update. Near the spawn area there's a large building. Walking into it will move you presumably inside. Here things are 8-bit and monochrome. And there's kind of a cutscene here, and we'll get into that in the story section, but afterwards you can talk to Fredbear, and you are finally released into the new content. So let's talk about it. In this update, they added 8 new characters. Nightmarion, Jacko Bonnie, Jacko Chica, Nightmare Balloon Boy, Anim Dude, Coffee, and Mr. Chipper, and Purple Guy. But the main event for the gameplay were the new mini-games that were added to unlock the characters. Let's get right into it. Foxy.exe is a minigame that starts like a desktop where you can open a program called Foxy.exe. This starts a simple game where you walk along a platform as Adventure Bonnie with creepy renders of Withered Foxy in the background as voice lines play over and over. Obviously, this is a play on the EXE creepypastas in subsequent games. At first, you just walk around, but things get harder as you run into Withered Freddy and then later a kitten. To avoid these and move forward, you have to either turn away until they fade, or hide behind these black shapes in the foreground. At the end of this minigame, you unlock Nightmarion. Foxy Fighters is a shoot-'em-up style scrolling shooter where you control Foxy alongside NPC fighters of Toy Chica, JJ, and Nightmare Chica, as you fight waves of enemies, finally defeating the final boss, Souldozer, a character from another previous Scott game. Beating the game with a performance of rating B or lower unlocks Jacko Chica, and beating it with an A unlocks Nightmare BB. Then there's Freddy in Space, and there you go. Turns out the April Fool's joke wasn't such a joke. This is a Mega Man type side-scrolling shooter where you collect power-ups, shoot enemies, and eventually kill the final boss. Scott Cawthon's head in a jar. If you complete the game normally, only collecting some of the power-ups, then you unlock Jacko Bonnie. If you complete the game without collecting any power-ups, you unlock Coffee. And if you complete the game collecting all the power-ups, you unlock Purple Guy. And finally, Chica's Magic Rainbow. To any veteran FNAF player, that name will strike absolute fear into your heart. This is a side-scrolling platform that is most reminiscent of old rage games like Unfair Mario. This game is absurdly difficult with fake outs, random attacks, and an annoying rainbow above you taunting you for every failure. The difficulty is high, the controls are frustrating, obstacles like sunflowers, wooden spikes, logs, and even rainbow laser beams the rainbow itself shoots. You only have 33 lives because after that the rainbow kills you herself and the game ends. Just beating the game normally unlocks Anim Dude, and beating it in under 3 minutes unlocks Mr. Chipper. There were also the new areas that this update took place in. The Halloween backstage is a maze-like biome where a lot of the plot hinges around, and where you run into pretty much all the new characters. There's also the Geist's Lair, a mine-like area with toxic air that drains HP when you're inside. This is where the final boss battle takes place. That's pretty much all the new stuff gameplay-wise. Otherwise, boss battles, character interactions, fights, they're pretty much the same. I think they updated some things like some 8-directional movement and minor bug fixes, but generally that's it. There is more stuff that I haven't talked about yet, but that's not purely gameplay, that's more plot related, so we'll get into that in the plot section. So let's talk about visuals. Again, if you want to know about the game generally, go to my Update 1 video, but for this new update, I do want to talk about a couple things. First, the minigames. Each one has a very specific references and inspirations that are tied to it, not just in the gameplay, but in the visuals. Foxy.exe replicates the old Windows XP era creepypasta with its classic field stock image desktop background that calls directly to the XP default desktop. Then actually playing the game, it's clearly just a sprite from the game ripped and placed into this low budget walking game where you just walk on a plane with a spooky background. While it may be a little on the nose, it does a great job parodying the low quality Sonic EXE ripoffs that spawned and highlights how unscary they are by literally throwing a kitten PNG in as an enemy. Again, maybe a little on the nose, but still pretty spot on as a parody. For other minigames like Foxy Fighters and Freddy in Space, it's clear that these are love letters to other games that Scott Cawthon enjoys. I recall Scott Cawthon saying something about loving the Mega Man games, and that sort of inspiration for the retro space shooter is very clear through these minigames. Obviously, Foxy Fighters is a direct parody of games like Star Fox. Obviously, Foxy would need to be the protagonist for this one, with little dialogue screens popping up and the characters talking like little puppets. And Freddy in Space is clearly a love letter to Mega Man and other Metroidvania games. And for Chica's Magic Rainbow, well, obviously the happy-go-lucky visuals contrast with the absolute rage that fills you when playing the game, but there is a bit more than just that. Like other games in the genre, the unfair or rage games, there's this weird use of assets, like the petals on this flower just flying out. If you wanted to make a game that was hard, you could have made something that would shoot them, or made spikes that shoot out. Instead, like an unfair Mario or unfair Cat Mario and all of that stuff, it's this weird feeling of assets ripped from a different game. But obviously, this is the game. So I think there should be a real appreciation here for the care Scott Cawthon took in recreating each of these styles of games. And I quickly just want to touch on the new area, the Halloween backstage. I honestly wonder if this was originally planned to be a Halloween update and then it had to take a turn, or if this was all planned from the beginning. Either way, the new backstage area reminds me a lot of FNAF 4. Not just because of FNAF 4's Halloween update, but also the use of spooky houses, trees, and the color red and orange. I think it's done this way almost to remind you that yes, FNAF is still a horror series, even if this game isn't. Okay, let's get the big thing out of the way. Voice acting, fully voiced characters that aren't Scott Cawthon. Let's go into a little more detail here. For a few of the minigames, they are fully voiced with all of the characters. That, and also, the end. But what's really interesting about things like Foxy Fighters is the names here are actually pretty impressive. For instance, JJ, Toy Chica, and Nightmare Chica are voiced by Amber Lee Connor, who's done voices for Borderlands 3, My Hero Academia, and a Final Fantasy game. Foxy is voiced by Jesse Adams, who's been in Marvel's Avengers Academy, and other characters like Souldozer and Fredbear were voiced by people who would become staples of FNAF from here on out. PJ Haywood and Christopher McCall. The introduction of fully voiced characters is very important to the series as we go on, but for now let's just talk about it in the context of this game. In Chica's Magic Rainbow, the rainbow itself mocks you whenever you die, including what I think may be the first instance of like an actual swear word in a FNAF game.
Damn it.
Oh, and don't try to turn off the voice.
Oh, really? It's like that. Voice is off, you say? Well, now you really pissed me off.
Now, obviously, this adds a lot to the rage of the game, specifically the high-pitched, overly happy sound. But guess who voiced the rainbow? Jimmy fucking Neutron. I'm not joking. Jimmy Neutron's voice, Debbie Derryberry. Is that her name? That is an insane name. She was also in Toy Story. What I'm trying to point out is they have star power here. Speaking of star power, guess who did the voice lines in the background of Foxy.exe? Mark Martell, aka the guy who did Freddie Mercury's singing in the Queen movie. The point is, this is a star-studded cast. And of course, we couldn't talk about voices without talking about Toy Chica's little debacle. I'll just play it.
You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you? You won't get tired of my voice, will you?
Oh, and speaking of annoying, The Foxy.exe voice lines just play over and over and over and over with no breaks. This game is really good at annoying the shit out of you on purpose. Before we move on, I want to talk about the music, not just for Update 2, but for the game in general. My last video, I didn't really talk about it that much, but I think the person who composed it deserves some credit, Leon Riskin. There are actually some tracks that I remember being available that didn't make it into the game, but were on the FNAF World website. The music is all catchy, memorable, it's just really good, and I think the creator deserves some credit. Moving on. Okay, the plot. Now there isn't a bunch of different endings or some clock ending that ties into the main lore somehow, but there is something important here. Like I said, when you first enter the game to activate the Update 2 content, you're led into this pixelated cutscene. Here, a mysterious man sits at a desk, known as the Desk Man, seemingly working on something. Here's what he says. It's a vicious cycle, you know, but then most things in life are. The pendulum swings one way, then it swings the other. Now we return to darkness. Something terrible is coming. Come back later. Maybe I will tell you more. From here, all you can do is leave. At this point, you can then talk to Fredbear again. He starts out like he's about to send you on some big adventure, but the music cuts out and, well, Fredbear seems awfully disappointed. He tells you that the game bombed in reference to the poor reception of the game's release, and now he has gone insane. No one knows what he's making, and they can't get to it. It's best to just leave the game alone. However, after a lot of dots, you convince him to help you along. He lets you into a portal that leads you to the Halloween backstage area, where unreleased characters are. They're the only thing strong enough to defeat the Guardian that's protecting this thing that he is making. Here is where you salvage the code of the characters by completing the minigames their code was used for. The area that leads to the Guardian is filled with toxic air, meaning you'll need a full party of these new characters to move on. Many of the minigames themselves have plots inside of them, like Freddy in Space is sort of a meta-commentary on Scott Cawthon making a bunch of games and crazy spin-offs. There's plenty of inside jokes and references, and even a reference to, I think, what might be the first time we ever heard anything about the FNAF movie script, although I guess we didn't know that's what it was at the time. A reference to the Plushies Take Manhattan rejected script that I think happened early on in the FNAF movie development. Generally, like the first update of FNAF World, all the dialogue is very meta and jokey. After collecting all the characters and leveling them up, you enter the final toxic Geist area. The Geist layer is filled with pixelated and extremely difficult enemies. Navigating this area leads you to the final boss, the Purple Geist. He pops on screen and the rainbow from Chica's Magic Rainbow squashes him. That's right, the final boss is Chica's Magic Rainbow. Very fitting considering that minigame is regarded as the hardest one. Not only do you need to beat this boss, but you need to do it in 3 minutes or else you lose automatically. Doing so leads to a quick death cutscene.
The next time you see a rainbow in the sky, that is me coming to your house!
And then we're back to the Desk Man. I'm impressed. What are you doing here? Can't you see I'm busy? You deactivated my games. I didn't know what else to do. I don't want to disappoint people, but my mind isn't right. I've made something terrible. Her name is Baby. It's too late to deactivate her. I'm sorry. The lights go out and...
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone, please stay in your seats.
Then the lights cut back on and blood spills out around the Desk Man's head. Fade to black. To be continued. The end. Obviously, there is a lot to talk about here after that, and we know generally that this was a teaser for Sister Location, but more theories we'll get into later. For now, I just want to talk about a couple miscellaneous things. First off, there's a secret path that lets you get into the backstage area without ever talking to the Desk Man, as Purple Guy tells you. Generally, this update was received a lot better than the first update. It added a lot of content, it was funny, and it was generally more polished. Plus, like I said, it broke new ground for the series. A whole cast of voiced characters, a teaser for the next game inside the game, and plenty of meta commentary. I also remember Dako having to play this game in the hospital and just personally being very worried about him. Also, weirdly enough, there have been plenty of fan games based off of FNAF World, although not nearly as many as the main series games. People also drew comparisons to Five Nights at Fuckboys, which was a game that was released a little bit before FNAF World initially was. Also, with the increased difficulty of the minigames, a whole mini community built around speedruns. Chica's Magic Rainbow world record, as far as I know, is 59.22 seconds. Whenever Scott presents a challenge, people always find a way to take it upon themselves to make a harder one and then beat it. Alright, the theories for this were pretty straightforward actually. There's a couple different ways to look at it, but the main one was that Deskman was Scott Cawthon himself talking about this new game that he was creating. With the hard mode ending and a lot of the meta talk, it made the most sense. There were other ideas though, mainly that Deskman was Henry. For those who don't know, in the Silver Eyes, a FNAF novel released not long before FNAF World, there's a character named Henry who created the animatronics and then kills himself. It's never exactly clear why, so people thought that that's what this end cutscene was, and he did it because he created this new character, Baby. When it came to who the Baby character was, we'd find out pretty soon. Alright, let's get straight to the point. Although this update was received a lot better than the initial game at release, it was also a lot shorter. There was interesting content, but not a lot of it, and there weren't multiple endings. In the end, it was more of a glorified teaser for the next game. It was fun and great for the community at the time, but I'm gonna have to put it in C tier with the original game. So, FNAF World Update 2. Great for the time and still fun to go back and play through, but gameplay-wise and story-wise, it was a little short. Either way, it was a fantastic interlude for the next game, Sister Location.
The $5 meal deal at McDonald's means you get to pick between a McDouble or a McChicken. Then get a small fry, a small drink, and a 4-piece McNuggets. That's a lot of McDonald's for not a lot of money. Get the $5 meal deal today.
Prices and participation may vary for a limited time only.
Where will they go? What will they do? All of that and more happening now.
Clara, I tell you, the baby is...
Press the red button now to administer a controlled shock.
Welcome back everyone to our Five Nights at Freddy's retrospective series. Today we're talking about Sister Location. This one really marked the next phase for Five Nights at Freddy's in a lot of different ways. This one is going to be long, and my hope is a little scary, so let's get started. Now, it's important to mention here that a lot of the teasers that were going on around the time of Sister Location and a lot of the early stuff was also happening the same time as FNAF World Update 2, so there's some overlap here. But the first big mystery to solve was the lines. This teaser was released on Scott Games and slowly added letters as time went on. There were plenty of ideas as to what it could be, but then we found it and confirmed it. Someone went digging into the metadata of the image and found the name Sister Location. Now, for the life of me, I can't find any actual reference of this happening. I just know it did. I have a clear memory of someone posting on the subreddit that they went into the metadata, like Photoshop data of the image, and they found Sister Location, but I couldn't find anything on the subreddit this many years later, and I couldn't find anything on YouTube about it. I just feel like I remember it happening. And if I remember correctly, this is what made Scott sort of fast forward and just release the full next teaser, Sister Location. There was never just one. and behind a new animatronic, almost like the toy animatronics, but not quite. Around this time, there was a lot of other discoveries being made. Someone found Scott Cawthon's copyright logs and saw that he had added a bunch of new names: Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy and Foxy, Biddy Bab, Ennard, and Mini Rena. Who exactly these characters were was highly debated, but there was a surprising amount of accuracy with a lot of people's early predictions. There was also the source code. At this point in the series, I'm sure you know that checking out the source code on Scott Cawthon's websites is extremely important. Scott had hidden a show schedule in the metadata for the new characters and also introduced the name Afton Robotics. This was a huge deal. For those who don't know, in the Silver Eyes novel, William Afton is the name of the murderer, so his name held a lot of weight. There's also Chica's Party World, which I think it's still up for debate what it actually means. One big thing I remember from this era was the adult theory popularized by the fan game creator Pop Goes. For a while, this schedule and all of this stuff was connected to this theory that somehow the next game was going to be about a robotic strip club. I remember thinking at the time this didn't really make a lot of sense for the next direction that Scott Cawthon was going to go, and I think this is what inspired him to add an extra line to the source code that specified children's entertainment. Now let's talk more about the actual teasers. There was the full reveal of Baby, which had a little bit going on. Some people thought they could see the reflection of Springtrap in her nose, and there was a debate as to whether she had hair or just a jester hat. And then there was the Ennard reveal. And that line at the bottom, there's a little of me in every body. People quickly caught on to that space, every body. However, exactly how it connected to the lore wouldn't quite be clear until the game came out. Then the Biddy Babs and the classic line, "Don't hold it against us," a gameplay hint with the "Get back to your stage" teaser, and then of course, the trailer. In typical Scott Cawthon fashion, the trailer was full of quick flashes of gameplay and cryptic messages. However, this time, there's a lot more to theorize about. The lines "Don't hold it against us," the completely new setting and themes, and the audio. Some people thought this was a bunker in the robot apocalypse or a nuclear fallout had occurred. This also had the opening which referenced all the other games, quite aptly, I'd say. Oh, and I almost forgot. Sister Location ended up being cancelled due to leaks. Except obviously it wasn't. Brightening this teaser image, we get a portion of a news article explaining that Circus Baby's Pizza World's opening has been cancelled due to gas leaks and that the building was sold. However, things aren't quite over for Circus Baby yet. I could keep talking about all the theories and ideas people had around this time, but let's just get into it. October 7th, 2016, Sister Location was released. Now, the gameplay of Sister Location, there isn't just a simple loop like there were with the previous games. Each night in Sister Location is different and very linear. It's more story-based. So let's start with some of the gameplay aspects that stay consistent throughout the nights, and then we'll talk about each night individually. So first off, the limited movement of FNAF 4 was expanded on in this game. While it is extremely limited in Sister Location, WASD movement was added in certain sections. Vents, large rooms, things like that. Otherwise, it's still a point-and-click game. Clicking, dragging, moving your flashlight, those are all your most important tools. Aside from that, how you use all of these aspects changes depending on the night, so let's talk about each night. You start the night by coming down an elevator into the main compound of the game, and walk through a room where you must shock Ballora and Funtime Foxy back on their stage. From there, you move forward into a new room where you have to shock another animatronic, Baby, back to her stage. And then you're done. You turn around and leave. End of night 1. This night starts just like the last one, moving through the areas underground and shocking the characters back to their stage. However, in Baby's area, the power goes out, and Baby instructs you to hide under the desk. From here, you have to keep a metal cover closed as the Biddy Babs try to pry it open, and keep your flashlight away from their eyes. Once you survive for long enough, you move to the Ballora Gallery, where you move slowly across the room as Ballora moves around you. Using the sound, you must stop when she gets too close, and make your way to the breaker control room. Here, you have to reset the power in the building using a control panel. However, as you do, Funtime Freddy gets closer. But whenever you're away from the control panel, any power you haven't fully reset begins to tick back down. To move Funtime Freddy back, you have to play a calming voice recording that you access from outside the control panel. After hopefully surviving this, you move back through Ballora Gallery, but she isn't actually able to kill you here. And that's the end of night 2. Night 3 starts the same as 1 and 2, checking the animatronics in the first room. Then you move to the Funtime Auditorium, where you have to use a flash beacon as you move through the dark room. Move too much, Funtime Foxy will get you, so you have to use a flash beacon to locate Funtime Foxy and stop moving if they're too close. Once you make it to the next room, you have to perform maintenance on Funtime Freddy by pushing a series of buttons in a specific order. After removing a power module, the Bonbon hand puppet from Funtime Freddy begins sneaking around the room. Shining the flashlight directly on it will make it run away, so you have to carefully and quickly press the button on its bow tie to shut it off without shining the light directly on it. If you take too long or let it climb too close, you're dead. After that, you're done. End of Night 3. Night 4 starts with you waking up in a spring lock suit. From here, you have to keep a series of spring locks wound up while preventing mini-renas from climbing on the top of your suit. If they do, you're dead. But by shaking them off, you loosen your spring locks as well, so it's a delicate balance. Night 4 is so difficult there was actually a patch released to make it easier. Even then, it's the only base game night of any of the FNAF games I haven't completed. It's just absurdly hard and lasts so long. But after you beat that section, the night is over. On to Night 5. Night 5 starts with checking for the animatronics and then moving to the maintenance area again, this time to fix Baby. Here you have to put in a code that is given by Baby randomly to open a hatch, take a part, and then send Baby down a conveyor belt. After that, Baby leads you through a dark room as an animatronic comes after you. Follow her instructions closely or you'll run into it and die. Finally, you enter a room where the game ends, which we'll get into in the story section. As you can see, it's not quite the same as the other games. Instead of a simple gameplay loop, you're led through different areas to do specific tasks and have different interaction as the story plays out. There is another aspect of gameplay though, an alternate ending that has an entire other gameplay section. We'll get into the story significance of that later, but for now let's just talk about the gameplay. When Baby leads you through the dark room, instead of following her instructions, you can move to a secret room where things are a lot more familiar. An office, 2 doors, and a camera system. Like most of the other FNAF games, the goal is to survive until 6 AM. The main part of this is listening. Ennard can be on your right, center vent, or left. Using the sound, you can keep track of where he is and use the camera to see how close he is. Other than that, it's pretty simple. Keep track and close the door. Things get harder at 4 AM when you need to close the door before checking on the camera like Freddy in FNAF 1. While being simple, it's extremely difficult because you have a very small amount of power. But generally, it's back to basics. Conserve power, check the doors, and be lucky. Aside from all that, there's not a lot else to talk about in the gameplay. Like I said, it's very linear and story-based. There is of course the custom night update, but I'll talk about that in more detail later. Until then, let's move on. When it comes to visuals, it changed a lot for the series, but is actually kind of a back to basics for Scott. If you look at his career, futuristic and sci-fi sort of modeling is actually what he's used to. So the change in look from an unsettling house or creepy restaurant to a futuristic style bunker with, well, you can't even call them animatronics at this point. They're just full-on robots. It's honestly the natural progression if you look at Scott's career. He's been a sci-fi man at heart this whole time. Moving on to the robots of this place, from the Bitty Babs and Mini Arenas all the way up to the babies and the Ennards, there's something specific about them that makes them unique. They most closely resemble the toy animatronics, but even that is only surface level. While the original animatronics were plush or had fabric on the outside, and the toy animatronics seem to be made from plastic, the Funtime animatronics are made from metal, segmented into different parts that allows for them to seemingly change subtly. While on the surface this just seems like an odd design choice, it actually makes a bit of sense once we get into the theory section. Either way, the design of these animatronics are no longer relying on the fear of mascots. Now it's like clowns, robots, and the future horror aesthetic that may remind you of 1950s horror films and space horror like Alien. When it comes to the actual facility you're in, the sci-fi sort of space theme fits here as well. Wire, buttons, flashing lights, and control panels. This is clearly higher tech stuff than we're used to. There's a strong emphasis on the lighting in this game, with a lot of variation. Blue is probably the strongest color used in this, but green and purple also have a prominent space here as well. The feeling of being in a place of entertainment is very much a facade, but I think that's on purpose. You're basically crawling through vents and storage containers, but there's random decorations and masks hung up around, going back to the classic theme of Five Nights at Freddy's: shitty corporate veneer. Oh, and a quick note on the home you go to between nights. Remember how I said there was a 1950s feel? Well, look no further than the old TV and wallpaper. Plus, we couldn't talk about the visuals without talking about how there was a whole animated show thrown in just for fun. Amazing. I also want to talk about the animation. This, at least at the time, excluding FNAF World, was the most animation-heavy Five Nights at Freddy's game there was. Specifically cutscene-wise, we see a lot. We see the scooping room in action, the mini arenas and Ballora, Ennard and Funtime Foxy, There's also a lot of stark imagery here, from the guards hanging to Bellora's broken eye staring at you in Night 4. Great stuff all around. Now, in my FNAF World Update 2 retrospective, I talked about how important voice acting being introduced would be to the series. We really start to see that here. First off, Hand Unit. Hand Unit essentially takes the place of Phone Guy in this game, but is not voiced by Scott Cawthon. He goes through more than one voice, actually. Baby's dialogue is pretty much the most important aspect of storytelling in the game, and the performance is great. And that's not to mention the iconic voice of Funtime Freddy, and the haunting sound of Bellora's voice talking in the gallery, and honestly just every other performance. On the sound design generally, while it isn't quite as gameplay oriented as some of the others, with the exception of Bellora Gallery, it's where most of the horror comes in. Random noises of shifting metal or the voice of the vent notifications letting you know that there is something in the vent with you, the metallic breathing of Ennard or the sudden sound of heavy machinery adds to the atmosphere, but can also cause actual jump scares.
Book.
And then there's the music. Fun fact.
Bet you weren't expecting me this soon, bitch! Wait, I have to turn my... Wait. Boom, bitch! Get fucked! Bet you weren't expecting me this soon. I hope you got jump scared. Oh, what a great start. What a great start. Hello. Hold on. Fix that. Mix It Up's not open. Hold on. I thought that was part of the video. It's because I'm a genius. It's because I'm an actual genius that graduated genius school. Let me do this real quick. Hi! Hold on, I gotta tweet that I'm back. Twitter. Is Spotify on right now? There we go. Quote. I'm on screen now. Come, children. Come. I can't say children. Come back. Yeah, that's fine. That works. Fishing's good. I have 3 things to say. First, Relying Earth, thank you for the 19 months. Jeff, thank you for the 3 months. And Brax, thank you for 18 months. We have about 3 hours left of Subtember. So I'm just trying to milk it. I'm going to be so real. I'm just doing everything in my power to milk it because, like, free money. Also, I'm 1 follower away from 1,500. 1 follower away from 1,500. That'd be pretty epic if I actually got somebody. So I didn't have a plan. Give me a number between 10 and 30. 30. Why? Cheers. I did, in fact, bring this water bottle to school. I'm very easily bought. My attention is for sale, yes. A girl's gotta make a living, you know? I'm very easily bought. My attention is for sale, yes. You know, a girl's gotta make a living. For someone that claims to hate watch, Mr. Bandana Head, you fucking... Holy shit, thank you for 30 gifted subs. I literally said I don't hate watch ever. You motherfucker, I will pull... Wait, who... Yeah, no. Who said it then? Am I insane? I don't think I'm going insane. Twitch getting to cast lines is insane. Also, fucking 30 gifted subs, thank you so much. And 6 extra from Twitch. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, I said I did not mean Mr. Bandana Head. I meant Abuelito. I don't know why I said Mr. Bandana. I guess I was just thinking about Mr. Bandana Head. I got the sense that my family is still disappointed in my career choices.
Sarah's 92, Gerald Sarah's 92, Twiggy Chadu.
Pun! Thank you for 4 months. Hi, guys. This is the first Monday stream I've had in so fucking long. Wait, I gotta take my socks off because they're absolutely rancid and filled with sweat. I literally just walked in the door from class. I just walked in the door. Class fucking sucked. I'm gonna be so honest. But I did my first set of cornrows today, and I didn't completely.
Daddy likes to take care of his kids.
Holy
what can I
shit.
say?
Thank you.
14-month dance party.
Oh my god, there's
Mika
gonna be
me
so
13
many.
stinky spin Vagfriend spin hypervine chat spin squidding spin monkey spin alien PLS cat PLS Freddy PLS
Also,
Mindy,
holy
monkey,
shit,
PLS,
level
monkey,
7 hype
PLS,
train
pokey,
going right
PLS,
now.
Squidward
Fucking
PLS
A.
Nanami PLS purple PLS witty monkey pulse FNAF.
Dr. Squawk, thank you for 14 months of tier 3. Abuelito, if... Hold on a second. I gotta change something. Oh, where's fishing? I'm just turning off the subs thing because... There we go. Okay. That should be fine. What was I saying? Oh, thank you for 6 months of tier 3, 14 months overall. Holy shit. And also the hype train. Yeah. If you're not a hate watcher, is it gonna go 30 times? Oh my god, it is. Can I clear the queue? I'm just gonna mute it. Abuelito's got a lot of fishing to fucking do. Also, 100 bits. I don't care about fishing in this stream. I don't either. I'm gonna be honest. I don't really care about fishing at all. I just thought that you guys liked it, so I added it. I'm really fucking tired. I haven't even eaten dinner yet. I just walked in because I wanted to say hi. I was just trying to milk some ad revenue. Take advantage of some... Go eat dinner, girl. I don't know. What should I eat? My roommate's not even home. I don't know what I want. Did you enjoy my choice of baby stim videos? I very easily I thought about putting on just like regular ass baby stim of like the fucking what's it called? The fruits. Forgot the word for fruit there for a second. I thought about putting the fruits on, but then I remembered that video existed and I watch it every... Yeah, Cocomelon. No, not Cocomelon. Wait, is it Cocomelon? Well, I appreciate the lurk. Is Cocomelon the fruits? I didn't know that's what Cocomelon was. I thought it was something different. I'm gonna be honest. My nephews watched those videos this morning. What, the FNAF ones or the Cocomelon ones? I like Sagan Hawks a lot as a YouTuber. I fuck with his content so heavily. He's cool. So just like shout out him. Oh yeah. I love the fruit. I like the fruit videos with different music over it. Like I watch the fruit videos, but like with Sean Paul in the background. Hi, Mika Miba. Hi, my baby. How are you doing? I miss you. Mika Miba, I was told some good news by your boy wife Austin earlier, so get on applying. Get to my state, please. Get to my city. Get in my bed, actually, is really what I need for you to do. Yeah! I wasn't sure if you told chat or anyone. Mika Miba, my favorite Balatro streamer. Can I make a confession? I'm addicted. I'm addicted to Balatro, but I have yet to play the, like, I've only played the mobile version, and I have not won a single run. Oh my god! Wait, this is huge. I knew this would happen. Yeah, you can thank Raptor for that one. He sent me the $10 to buy the mobile game. I'm a dick. Addicted to you. Mika, do you want to give me advice for Balatro? Just, like, send it in a voice note. I'm scared to download it on... It's literally... Have you seen the fucking, the Radstads tweet? There was... Somebody tweeted a picture of Radstads at a baseball game. And, it went viral.
I'm very easily
Gaming!
bought. My attention is for sale, yes.
Thank you so much
make
for
a living,
5 gifted.
You know?
That's so epic of you.
I'm very easily bought. My attention is for sale, yes.
Because Twitch gave out one more. Woo!
You know?
Oh, I forgot I wasn't wearing socks. That's cool. Anyway. What's up, my guy? Thank you so much. Welcome in. We're just milking out the end of Subtember right now. I just got home from class. Look at this is my uniform. Check the uniform, guys. Check the drip. All black. Technically, I'm not even supposed to I'm not supposed to wear crop tops, but I got away with it because I wore my smock, but I can't bring my smock because it has my school on it. My advice with Balatro is to not play it safe. The big difference between game and real life is that if a run doesn't work out, you can just do... Oh, yeah, well, yeah! That's why I love the game, because I can gamble and still pay rent. It's great. I'm glad you put on video essays instead of some fuck-ass baby videos. Guys, go watch Sagan Hawks' fucking videos on YouTube. I legitimately... Let me link his channel. Oh, so you just suck? Yeah, pretty much. Thanks, Mika. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for that. I'm definitely... That definitely boosted my ego and confidence. 100%. Definitely didn't destroy my self-esteem at all. Like, not at all. I swear... We're like Sagan Cox. Ah ha. Do you guys want to play Minecraft? What if I played Minecraft right now? I got the sudden itch. What anti-level do you see yourself consistently getting to? Usually about 5, 6. The highest I've ever made it was 7. I made it to anti-7. And I got fucked over by the boss bind because it was the boss bind that it like upped the total. So like instead of like 80,000 chips or whatever, I had to get 110,000 or so, or like 120,000 or something like that, and I would have made it. But I lost by 6 chips. I lost by 6 chips. It actually made me want to throw my phone into the river. Not like 600. No, like legitimately 6 chips. Hey, I had one of those. The singing fish. Well, I didn't have it. My grandma had it. And it used to sing, I don't remember what the words were. Do you know what I'm talking about, though? Fuck, what is that song? Don't worry, be happy. Maybe. Yeah, this song! I am incredibly excited for Skiz album. Japanese release! The big thing is you have to have a good combination of multipliers, X multipliers, and chips, and planet card hand levels. That's what I've been focusing on! I've learned. I do it while I'm at work. Unfortunately, I gamble while I'm at work now. And it's not healthy. And I sit there and I don't ignore my tables. But I do gamble in my off time when I probably should be doing side work. Please don't tell my boss that I said this. I know one of them follows me on, I think, Twitch. Be happy. I won't tweet it. I didn't have a talking fish to sing it to me. My dad used to play. Yeah! My grandma had a talking fish. Shout out my grandma. My grandma had a talking fish, and it used to sing this song. It was cool. I think it's somewhere in my basement still, actually. Azura, welcome into the stream. You're in my Twitch, or my September recap post on Instagram. Hello. Your feet. How many Abuelito's got like one left. Thank God. Your grandma's fish could talk? What do you mean by that? Talk, yes. Yeah. Did you guys not have a talking fish growing up, or was that just me? Like, is that just a me thing? Hopefully the Mikas are going to be in Chi-Town by December. Also, Mr. Banana Head, I saw earlier you said you have a job interview tomorrow, and I say good luck to you to that. I didn't have one, but I know what they are. Fish don't use... Wrong. People really sleeping on Billy the Big Mouth Bass. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Paragon. How's it going? How you doing? Mika will be here just in time for Hanukkah and also... our joint birthday subathon, probably. Cuddling stream! Woo! Aw, shit, I just fucked my knee. What did you do? Do not pull a Squid Ink and fuck your shit up. It's okay, that's fair. That's fair. The talking fish seems to be a white people thing. Well, gee. I wonder what I am. Does the color of my skin not give it away? Just spitball in here. I just ate shit and my knee went through a fan. Oh my fucking God. Please wrap that shit. Squawk, I got some info. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this, sweetheart. Your white girl over here, though, did do a full set of cornrows today. I saw... Yeah, can we send some love to Squid Ink-a-Dink? Because that bitch is not doing well. Well, she is, but she's not. Fuck the Sistine Chapel. But Sistine spelled C-Y-S-T... Is that how you spell the Sistine Chapel? Like, how do you actually spell the Sistine Chapel? Okay, so she tweeted that, or I tweeted that. I was like, tear down the Sistine Chapel. And she went, you can't just tweet that. And I said, why not? It's spelled wrong. Like, it's spelled like cyst. And she was like, the FBI are gonna flag you. And I was like, for what? It's not even in the United States. It's not, right? The Sistine Chapel's not in the United States, right? No, it's in Vatican City. I'm not crazy. I would love to shout out Squid, perhaps. Brother. This is what happens to my brain after a full 13-hour day of classes. I've been in school since 8:30 in the morning. I've been in school for 13 hours today. I want to jump off a bridge. Y'all ever get that feeling? Why did I do this to myself? Why did I go back to school? It's pretty epic that you still streamed. Well, first of all, it's the last day of Subtember. I have to. Also, I didn't stream yesterday. By the way, I still don't feel good. I feel awful, actually. I'm so burnt out. Why did I go back to school? Yeah, in Minecraft. What did I say? I don't remember. Probably made a suicide joke. I'm so sorry. About Minecraft. I keep forgetting to say in Minecraft. Why does the internet have to make this fucking stupid rules to make a career change that would be fulfilling and capable of giving you joy? Okay, but hear me out. What if I drop out and just spend the rest of my life in food service? Sounds like a short life. You would hate that, I know. I was actually humbled finding out the meaning behind the wake up from the... Oh, yeah. Guys, September is ending. Somebody wake that guy up. Honestly, can I be so fucking honest? I was running out of clips to post on Instagram. I needed to stream to farm some shit. Also, I had a really shit shift on Saturday, so I was like, maybe if I stream, I'll make up for it. Do you guys want to hear about my nightmare shift from hell that was on Saturday? Hold on. Let me not play the most sad song in the entire world. Okay. Picture this. Hi, Gurf! Have I eaten anything today? Yes, I do have breaks for lunch, so I did eat some food today. Have I had dinner yet? No. Nightmare shift from hell. Okay, picture this. You're Sarah Sweetie on your way into work at the bar that you work at. First of all, you are working a 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. shift. Not the worst shift in the world. Last time you worked a double, and that was a 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. That was awful. 4 p.m. to 12 a.m., right? I am dog sitting this weekend. I was dog sitting. So I was working and dog sitting. And the dog threw up its guts before 5 minutes before I'm supposed to leave for my shift. So I'm like, shit, all right, I got to look at this dog. I text my manager, I'm going to be 30 minutes late. I got to make sure this dog's okay. He's like, cool, whatever, no problem. Dog's fine. Just fucking swallowed its toy whole, threw it back up, whatever. So worried me for nothing. Had a quick panic attack for zero reason. So I get to work on time. On time. I clocked in at 4 p.m. And they're warning me. They're like, nighttime football games are a different breed than the morning ones. Like, it's going to be rough. And so I was like, okay, I'm prepared. Like, this can't be that bad, right? I was so incredibly wrong. People at night just do not know how to act, how to do anything, how to interact with another human being in a positive manner. I work at a sports bar, and therefore football games are a very big deal, especially when it's a certain team. Clientele was between the ages of 21 and 24. Like, legitimately, every single one of them were either just out of college, still in college on break, or like straight, I thought it'd be older. No. It was like a bunch of drunk teenagers in my mind. They were of legal drinking age, but I saw them as teenagers, if that makes sense. Because none of them knew how to fucking act. The place was madness. You couldn't get through. I couldn't deliver drinks. I was trying to deliver food. We didn't have a food runner. We didn't have a busser. We didn't have fucking... No, we had a bar back. But we didn't have a food runner or a busser. And I was on the upstairs level. Meaning every time I needed food, I had to go downstairs to get it. come back up, fight my way through a crowd. And when I say fight, I quite literally mean I was yelling, "Get the fuck out of my way, I have food." That's not an exaggeration either. I will swear on a Torah in front of 1 million people. I swear on the life of my cat that is a real thing that I said to somebody. And I pushed people. And you would think, oh, drunk people, their team's winning, like, they're in a good mood. Yeah, they're gonna tip really nicely. I want you to guess how many times I got stiffed. Oh, yeah. Let me do that really quick. So I'll give you time to guess. I think it'd be easier to guess how much money you actually did get. Let me put it in perspective. Also, hi, Mercury. Let me put it in perspective for you. A normal Saturday night shift without a football game, my tip average might be $250 to $300. That's on the good high end for a Saturday night, right? You want to know how much I made? About $75. It was hell to be there, and the payoff wasn't worth it. What's 75 divided by... What time did I leave? I left at 10? 6 hours? That is less than the minimum wage. So here I am, trying to just farm some ad revenue. I might do this more often, honestly. Like a Monday, I don't know, Monday like lurk bait, baby stim video. Monday movies, except I can't watch them with you.
For food, Sarah, even after a 13-hour day, still strives to lift others with streaming and still manages to be a style queen. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Bandana Head, for the $20 tip. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, most places around me are closed, but I do have food in my fridge. Actually, no, there's a corner store downstairs. It is Mr. Bandana Head. I want you all to know, I don't know why it says anonymous. I can see on my monitor that it says Mr. Bandana Head. I mean, I also can see your full legal name when I get the PayPal notification, but that's like a different, you know. I'm not going to say your full legal name on the internet unless you give me explicit permission. And even then, I'm going to be like, why the fuck would you want me to say your full legal name on the internet? That's strange. Don't do that. I had a thought. My government name is not what I go by anyway. I forgot what your government name... Oh, yeah. Interesting. Well, you guys know that Sarah is not my real name. That's just the name that I chose. No. Have you not heard this lore, Gurf? Yeah, no, Sarah is not my real name. Chat has yet to guess it. I've told my mods. My mods know what it is. Squawk has the worst memory known to man. It's fine. I'm almost positive I've told you. I just don't. I think you don't remember. I haven't? Oh, I didn't tell the new mods. Shit. Oh, okay, hold on. I'm gonna DM it to you guys. And by DM, I'm just gonna mean it's mod chat. You know my middle name too? Oh yeah? Oh yeah? Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I do that. I just realized I've been doing that Midwest thing of like, yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, no. Also, do you guys like my sprouts? Do we like my sprout decorations? Yeah, Sarah's not my real name. If you want to guess my real name, feel free, but you'll never figure it out because my parents are fucking weird and they didn't name me something fucking normal like a regular parent would. Hi, Austin. Hi. Apply for a damn apartment. Thank you for that. Oh, I almost got hit by a car today. And by a car, I mean a police car. So that was a fun thing that happened. I'm trying to like think about how my week's been. Sunday was okay, brother. I told you we need more money first. Yeah, it was entirely my fault. I'm not gonna lie. The cop, I had my headphones on and the cop was going like flashing lights and sirens and I was in the middle of the crosswalk and I just didn't realize that he was turning into that intersection. Walked right in front of him. But you know what? That's my that would have been my student loan payments, so. My sister just texted me. Good job. Thank you. I'm really proud of it. My sister just texted me an emoji of a dinosaur. So I'm going to text her back a sticker of her face in 0.5. My new favorite response is just, I've discovered the wonders of iPhone stickers. And my new favorite response to everything is to just send this one picture. I'll show you. This one picture of my sister that I have. Where is this? Have you seen? I have seen the 9/11 one. I love the 9/11 one. I love it so. It's so fucking funny. I gotta find this picture because it is my favorite fucking.
Shadow Wizard Buddy Gang. We love casting spells.
Sarah's real name is the Queen of the Goblins, Master of Practical Effects, Star of Stage and Screen, Honorary Member of the Wu-Tang Clan, Clandestine Wielder of Excalibur, Dedicated Lunge Jumping Enthusiast, wanted in 6 states for dancing with a mailman.
That's true about the mailman thing. How did you know, actually? Also, thank you for the $6 tip. Yeah, no, that thing about the mailman is true. Would you like to let me show you this picture of my sister. With a face track? Where you tracking? Where you tracking? Where you tracking? What the fuck? What is it doing? Too close, my guy. Too close. There we go. I just wanted everyone to see that picture. It's my absolute favorite picture of my sister, and I like to send that as a sticker to my family at random moments. Face tracker, is there a ghost over here? Don't scare me like that, though, because genuinely, I think my apartment building is haunted.
No!
Cruelfish Guitar Guy. First of all, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in to the stream. Welcome to the Bone Zone. We just hit 1,500 followers on Twitch. That is insane to me. Congratulations, Cruelfish Guitar Guy, for being the 1,500th follower. I also have a few ghostly encounters. I almost 100% live in a haunted house. Guys, poggers. This is so epic in poggies. I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it. Chicago is haunted as fuck. Guys, we need to get Jordan here. We need to get D-Tune here. Because I want to go on Paranormal Detour. So bad. I need to go on a haunted tour so bad. I love Paranormal Detour. Guys, I need. Hey, Jordan, if you're listening. Hey, D-Tune. Come to my city. My favorite new bit that I was doing at TwitchCon was just going around to people being like, hey, can I convince you to move to Chicago? And half of them would be like, honestly, I'm thinking about it. And then the other half would be like, fuck, no way. And it was like 50-50 every time. It was so funny. My other bit that I was doing at TwitchCon was, have you seen this video? I need to show you a video. It's not a bit if you actually want people to move. Well, it is a bit to me. But also, it's not a bit. I don't know if that makes sense. Is it? Wait, let me... I need to show you guys this video. Have you guys seen this video of a dog playing the recorder? I love that video so much. I love that video so much. So good. Oh, it's so good. It will never not be good. I've gotten Mika and Austin with it a couple of times. Love that video so much. Oh. Anyway, do I have anything else that I want to say? I should go to bed. I have to be up tomorrow at 8. Oh! That makes more sense. Yeah, Chicago movers. Death. But I just got here. What? Buddy. Alright, what do you want to know? AMA. Go. Only the interesting and funny questions are getting answered, though, and if I don't like your question, I'm blocking you. Oh, waking up at 8 a.m. is death. Yeah, it's actually more like 7 o'clock. What's your next tattoo gonna be? The word cunt on my right butt cheek. To match my other one. Favorite cereal? Special K. And I'm not talking about the cereal. Just kidding. It's actually probably Cinnamon Toast Crunch or Frosted Flakes. Frosted by your mom. XGALX. And that's the name of the ship. I frosted your mom. I just sit here and stare at you guys. What game you're excited coming? Oh, what game do I want to get? Let me show what's on my wish list here. What's the new zoo game that just came out? I was talking about that in Discord. I want to get that one. That one looked kind of fun. I watched the first 10 minutes of Jacksepticeye's video that he did. Zoocosis. Yeah. Zoocosis. It's a new horror game. Like, it looked so fucking cool in the trailer. Anything else? Second in Dagawa. I don't know if I have any burning questions, so I'm not sure if I am dead serious about that tattoo, by the way. That's like I'm dead serious, yeah. I have the word bitch tattooed on my left butt cheek, so I want to get cunt on the other side. I didn't even question it. I believed you. I told my tattoo artist that, and she was like, what the fuck? Why? What? It's like a Times New Roman. Let me see if I have a picture that is appropriate to show. I know I have one that, like, you can't see my butt in. There we go. Okay. So that's my tattoo. On my, you can't tell. I will get the word cunt on the other side to match it. I also need to get my tramp stamp touched up because I think the M is just a little bit shorter than the other letters, and I want to fix that. Don't judge my laundry. I funded one tattoo, but I don't think I should fund something so personal. What do you think getting All Men Must Die on my above my ass was less personal? I don't think so. Listen, it's your money. Do what you will with it. That is all I'll say. Sarah needs funding for so many other things first. Yeah, like tuition. And rent, actually. Rent is gonna be fun. I was so banking on Saturday to fucking bump it up, too. Oh, why did I have to go? I might call out. No, I can't call out tomorrow. Fuck. One is butt cheek adjacent. The other is just butt cheek. Well, technically, it's on the... I plan on funding Sarah's labia tattoo. What'd I get? Just an arrow? What if I got just abandoned, like right on the top? What's the front version of a tramp stamp? Free entry. Impressive. I'm getting impressive labia on my knuckles, but so that it's like doubled up. I can't. Narc, what does that sentence say? TS, but chick and middle hoe, then left chick. I think I just had a stroke trying to read that. I'm not gonna lie. Tattoo impressive on your labia. I'm getting that right here. Like, right here. More importantly, how much are you short on rent? That's a really good question. I have no idea. I have not counted my money at all. Hopefully not too much. Otherwise, catch me selling my virginity in Minecraft. That's a joke. That's not real. I'm not actually gonna do that. I can't. Not in Minecraft, anyway. So she says, I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl.
Oh.
Calixta, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Bone Zone, my friend. How are you doing today? If it's no, I don't worry about you. I thank you so much for the offer. Genuinely.
Do it in subs. Do it in subs so you can steal Twitch's money.
I'm just a girl. I know who you are. I know who you are. I know you. Hi, baby girl. How are you? Yeah, you do. How are you? It's so good to see you again. Well, see your words typed in chat. I'm Sweepy Me. Also, I'm actually literally probably gonna end stream soon. I was like, I'm gonna go till midnight, but the eepiness is taking over, and also the overwhelming desire to watch an episode of Criminal Minds before I go to bed. Every time I think you're about to accidentally flash the camera, I legitimately throw my glasses towards the screen. Yeah, no more spoons. No more spoons. Anyway, how are you? I'm so glad to see you in chat. Guys, any gifties in chat? By the way, if you gift over 5 subs, Twitch gifts extra subs, and I literally saw somebody gifted like 20 in Chris Melberger's chat, and Twitch gifted 35. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. Let's go, Mr. Bandana Head.
My attention is for sale, yes. A girl's gotta make a living.
Twitch gifted me a sub to a channel I don't watch.
Mr. Bandana Head gifted a tier 1 sub to Calixta. They have given 3 gift subs in the channel.
I wonder how many gifties I've gotten that I just have not. Oh, none. I actually have not gotten a single gift sub from Twitch. That's crazy. Whatever, I'm not bitter about it. I'm actually not. I really don't care. Sorry, I was staring at something. I got distracted. Actually, yes, Calixta. Yes. Genuinely? That's exactly what it was. Just so you know. I'm just a girl. I didn't mean to call you out like that. I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. I'm blushing. Did you see my face get red? It might be time for me to go to bed. Hey guys, thanks for the stream. Thanks for letting me lurk. I'm just a girl that uploaded a picture of me with my actual gay card. Wait, I want one. I'm gonna make myself a gay card. Did you put it on Twitter? IG. Wait. I gotta find this. Hold on. Okay, my internet is shitting itself apparently and not letting me see that. Instagram, please? I think I'm dumb. It's just not loading for me. That's okay though, because I went brain dead. Oh, do you guys want to see how much vitamin C I have? Fuck. I'm raiding out. I'm gonna raid out. I'm so fucking tired. I'm so brain dead. Thanks for letting me do this, and thanks for letting me yap for like an hour, 45 minutes, I don't know, for like 30 minutes when I got back. It was so good. Has Sarah taken the brain rot test? What's the brain rot test? No, wait a minute. What's the brain rot test? Is it a fucking BuzzFeed quiz? Hold on, I'm gonna do this first. We're doing this first. Who is the king of the... Wait, who is the king of the... Is it Queso? Oh, that I didn't know. That's Kai Cenat. He pulls all the girls with his riz. Loose as a goosh. What is universally known as the worst U.S. state? Ohio. What is the term for someone who is getting... Rizzler. I hate this. I hate this. What's up, brother? What is it called? Fucking Phantom tax. Who the fuck is Phantom? Mewing. What is the term for Sigma? Oh god. That's the grimace shake. I have to go. We're gonna raid Big Mommy Alexa. I have to go. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Copy that rest. Thank you for all the gifteds and the fucking love and support for tonight. I learned so much about you. It's done. You missed it. I'm sorry, Triss. No, yeah, Alexa's really... Stump, you missed it! Bad mod. I'm just kidding. I love you, baby girl. I miss you. The FNAF video was good? Good. Check out Sagan Hawks. Shout out to him for letting me play his fucking video. Thank you guys so much. I will hopefully see you on Friday. Maybe? Unless I call out of work tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know.